Hello, hello. Oh, Simples, you're keen on. How long have you been in waiting? Oh, Simples, you're keen on. Whoops. Sorry about that, in case you heard the echo. Stupid me had the telly on. I put the television on so that I can watch comments on that while I'm speaking into my phone, and stupid me had forgotten to to turn the volume off. So I'll just wait for a little while for people to come in. Oh, Green Eyes, hello, my sweet. Oh, you've been up since 3 a.m. So I'm presuming, what is it, 8 in the morning where you are now? I think. Is that right? I tell you what, you're going to be glad you emigrated to Australia. It is bloody cold here at the moment. Oh, 6 a.m. Any reason you've been up since 3 a.m. or should I not ask? Just trying to light these firelighters. Sorry about that. Give me 1 second. I should have done this before, but as my heating isn't working and it's absolutely effing freezing here, I'm trying to light the fire. There we go. I think Simples might have nodded off. I don't know how long she was in the chat for. Waiting. I just came into a message saying, yep, still waiting. Hi, Lady Witch. Hello, lovely. Are you well? Oh, you couldn't sleep. Johnny went back to Cairns to work yesterday for 3 weeks. Oh, I'm sorry about that. That must be hard, isn't it, having those separations? Oh, man. Yeah, I got up this morning. Obviously, somebody like Raven can just laugh at me saying about it's really cold here because it was only like -2 and she's had like -50. However, it's all relative and I am bloody freezing because I've no meat on my bones, as they say. Oh, it must be a subconscious thing. Has managed to sleep when he's here. Okay, yeah, it's and I'll be honest with you, Green Eyes. I mean, obviously, you know, we're not married or anything, but I sleep a lovely sound sleep if I'm with the other half, and I sleep quite fretfully on my own. Oh God! And the dog has now decided, because I'm talking to somebody, he's now bringing all his toys out of the toy box. Get some meat puddings in your belly. I don't mind so long as they haven't got kidney in them, Green Eyes. If they just did a steak pudding, what do they call them in Wigan? A babby's yed. And if they want to keep it warm while they get the food back from the chippy, they go babby's yed and keep Thelmit on. So they leave the little tin lid on. What do you think of my new avatar, ladies? Just while we're waiting for a few more to come in, because I thought I'll give it maybe 10 minutes or so. Just have a little general chit chat. You can't see everything that it says, but it says, why are Norse women so hot? And then it says, because Vikings didn't bring back the ugly ones. It just made me laugh. Should be used to it, as he's been doing it the last 10 years. Well, there's no should about it, though, is it? It's if you miss somebody, you miss somebody. If you sleep better with them there, you know, doesn't matter how short or long that time may be. Oh, you can't eat puddings, but you love kidneys. You're a dirty get, you are. Kidneys and liver and offal and no, thank you. But yeah, we're supposed to be coming in for quite a cold snap. I believe somebody told me earlier that they've actually seen snow in the northeast, I think around Northumberland. So probably where, you know, the area we were talking about last night about Lindisfarne. So Simples and Meadow are in that area. So as and when, if they come in tonight, then hopefully, you know, can ask them about the weather there, which is a thoroughly British thing, is it not? If we can't think of anything to talk about, let's talk about the weather. Oh, man. So I'm sorry, you'll have to listen to me supping on a hot brew for every so often. I just cannot tell you how cold I am. I think Washington got a shitload of snow yesterday. Wow. I'm presuming you mean Washington in America, not Washington Tyne and Weir. I've got an old school friend who lives up in, well, he married an American girl and went to live over there, and he lives in oh God, what's the name of the place? It's in Washington State, and it's near Seattle, Olympia, where they had an earthquake years and years and years ago. He lives over there now, so I might send them an email and see how they're getting on. But I know that they do get some good snow when it comes down. And I've not actually asked my cousin. He lives up in Vancouver, so whenever I say we've got loads of what's it called, snow here, my cousin Ron will just send me an email with photographs attached going, get the fuck out of here, this is snow, you call that snow? No, this is snow. And it'd be like, I don't know, 30-foot snowdrifts or something. Oh yeah, UK sometimes gets the aftermath of the weather. Yeah, we do. And it tends to go hand in hand, doesn't it? If we get the bad weather in, or if they get the bad weather kind of on the east coast of America, it tends to come over. Sometimes we're quite lucky and it dissipates as it crosses the Atlantic, but sometimes it doesn't. But I think we're more affected by the weather coming from Siberia. You know, it comes in that direction. It comes across Scandinavia, and then, you know, there isn't that much of an ocean between us, and you know, and it, by the time it hits landfall, you know, we do get some pretty bad stuff, as you will remember. Oh, so we've got 6 folk listening in, so welcome. Oh, hi, Joe. Hello, my love. Hiya. Wet and raining in California. Oh, see, California, I always think of it as being sunny all the time. I've got a friend out in California, and he's just always bragging about how hot it is. And he's got shorts on, he's got t-shirts on when I'm wrapped up. Raven sent me some photos with just the top of trees showing through, and they were huge pine trees. Yeah, I remember when we had the bad weather here. Hi, Meadow. Hello, love. I was just on about you. Hi, Sheila. I'm glad I waited. I was on about you in a nice way though, Meadow. And look, you've got a wrench. You're all blue. I was saying, somebody told me earlier that the northeast had been hit by snow. Has it affected you, love? I've not watched any news, so I'm just going off the back of third-party gossip as always. But yeah, somebody said the northeast and Northumbria around that area had been hit by snow. Joe Madre, I'm having to wear socks and shoes. That's cold for me. Well, that's like Scotland, isn't it? When it hits like 0, they just tell you to put a shirt on. And when it gets to -5, they tell you to put a cardigan on. Hi, Sharon, love. Hello. Welcome. Sheila, no snow in South Yorkshire, but it's buggering cold. It is here as well. Meadow, I thought my ears were burning. No snow here, but it is, and excuse my language, fucking freezing. Meadow, I've just been saying exactly the same thing. My heating's been broken for over 3 weeks now. They did come out to fix it. I had 24 hours of the radiators working. Now they've gone off. I have got a real fire, but I live in an old stone cottage that is absolutely bastard freezing. So Yeah, I'm sitting with a brew. I've got my... Oh, and you may or may not know, the others know, but because I try not to give real names out on here. I always refer to my boyfriend as Mr. Sexy. He bought me this gigantic, it's like a hoodie. I'm sure he called it an Uggy, I think, or a hoodie. It would have fitted somebody like Pavarotti, but apparently gamers wear them. They're like oversized, gigantic hoodie things. It's basically, I'm 5'2". It's probably about 4 inches above my ankles, but it's so warm. So I'm probably going to slip that on, I think, as well. It's like being, so you've got your sleeves and a hood, but it's like being wrapped up in a blanket. So no, don't apologise for bad language. We can say what we like in here, although I got the little strike for New Year's Eve because the C word was being used all over the place. Uddy. Oh, is that what they're called in Uddy? Oh, aren't they brilliant, Meadow? I'd never seen them before, and he's bought me some, they're like Argyle knitted sock things that are literally up to the top of my thighs. So he knows how cold I get. He's like a bloody radiator. Sheila, love, hello, hello, hello. We're just all whinging about how cold it is. So apparently, I think tomorrow at the moment where I'm in Lancashire, I think they said that tomorrow night is going to be pretty damn cold. So yeah, just try and get the house as warm as I possibly can. So I'll just keep a bit of a natter for another 5 minutes. Let us all catch up with each other before I start. I'm glad. Thanks so much for all coming in as well. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. And what I thought I would... Oh, let's have a look, guys. That sounds like sexy get-up thigh-high socks and an hoodie. Well, you never know, Green Eyes. You never know. I don't think I could get my hooker heels on with them, though, because they're too thick. No, bless him. He knows how cold I get, so he's obviously been a very thoughtful individual. I did very, very well this year from him, which was lovely, unexpected, and very, very appreciated. Right, what I thought I would do tonight, I'll just start, because obviously I know some of you guys might want to get off as well because of the time differences and so on. I know a couple of people are just going to be watching. Oh, hang on, Sheila. I listened back to the crazy live and determined that was exactly what set it off, Sheila. The beef curtains. I didn't mean that to come out. I just couldn't think of a word. And yeah. I am a dirty bugger. Did you laugh at us all? Well, I'm saying us all. Me, I just couldn't breathe, Sheila. I've got my flipping vape. I'd put that different flavour in it, which is the ice black currant. I've decided I don't like that one. And I just couldn't breathe. My throat was closing up, and yeah, I sounded like I smoked about 900 a day. Oh, were you, Sheila? I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm dying to hear what Denny thought of it, because I thought if anybody's going to laugh at that, it's going to be that bugger. So I don't know if Meadow, if you went back and heard it or not, but yeah, that's what we're normally like when we have a giddy one. It was the comments though, Sheila. Did you watch the live chat replay? Because that's what I'd said to Denny. Watch the live chat replay while you're listening to it, because some of the comments, I mean, Green Eyes set me off at one point. I just managed to, compose myself. And then she typed in the chat, I've just had a cheese toasty. So I just started screaming again. And then she said, thank you very fucking much. It was about to come up yet. You told me off when I first mentioned beef curtains on the Moist Live, and then you just throw it out there verbally. No, it was about the whole moist word. We don't like that. That's the most vile word ever, she says. Oh, God, don't start me off again, please. Come on, Coopy, lie down, mate. Oh, Simples is there. I'm sorry, I was cooking. No, it's absolutely fine, sweetheart. I just came in and you were already, you'd made a comment in the live and I was like, God, how long have you been in here for? So, right. Well, what I'm going to do is the day is moist today. Oh, thank you, Joe. Warm liver and PVA glue. Didn't it, Sheila? That was just, I just kept going back to it. I couldn't get it out of my head. Every time I started to kind of stop laughing, it just came out again. Oh, Simples was here from last night. Do you know what? When I noticed on this live before, they vanish as I go live, but I noticed there were a couple of comments that you'd made, you know, saying I'm here, got a comfy seat, and then you were like, I'm in the wrong effing live. It's okay, Joe. It's okay. I know. You were getting rather impatient, eh? So, what I will do is I'm going to start off. I'll just tell you what I'm going to do tonight. So, I am going to read from the book. That sounds like a quote from The Mummy. Do you remember that? Do not read from the book. I am going to read from the book. It's this bit about Vikings in America. I'm going to miss quite a lot of it out because it's kind of rehashing and going over what I was going to talk about in the first instance, which is what I know about the time running up to the discovery, and I'll say discovery meaning the European discovery of America as, as a place to live. So I don't mean any disrespect by saying discovery, especially Joe. I know you wouldn't take offence, Joe, but obviously, we do all know that the First Nations were there already. But from a Western perspective, the Vikings discovered the Americas. So I just wanted to say that first because I don't want it to sound too kind of we found America, because we didn't. Right, now that I've got the politically correctness out of the way, so what I decided to do was to talk you through what I know about as I said, the run-up to, thank you, Joe, I appreciate that, but I just wanted to say it because I know sometimes it can sound quite insensitive, can't it, saying we discovered this, we discovered that, and yeah, and that isn't the case, so I appreciate, thank you for that. So if I talk about the run-up to the Vikings discovering America. So, also as well, I'm really sorry, I should have done this before. Can one of you, if you have a moment, if you're feeling, I know usually Sharon's the one that's brilliant with the links, would somebody be able to post the link, if any of you ever watched Nuff Nuff's video on the Wood Plumpton Witch? She's uploaded it. I was trying to link it to my channel and I actually can't do it. Yeah. So whether it's because I'm on my phone, but I couldn't find a way to do it in my creator studio. So maybe I need to be on a laptop or a desktop to do that. So if possible, could I ask at some point if somebody, oh, is it Sheila? Oh, you are shite, aren't you, Sharon? I remember you saying that last night. It's good, isn't it, Simples? Oh, and bless her, and she'd hashtag me in it as well because I'd mentioned the Wood Plumpton Witch to her when I found out she was staying at Goosner. So if somebody could possibly, if I could ask that little favour and post the link to Jen's video in the chat so that if people haven't watched it, if you could pip along there, have a watch of it, give it a thumbs up, maybe leave a comment if you like it, because I love her videos and I love watching, the different places that people go to. So she's covered the Wood Plumpton Witch and the Pauper's Graveyard, and she's walking around there. Oh, Green Eyes, there you go. Thank you so much. So if any of you want to click on that, save the link or what have you, go back to it later on. Thank you, babes. And Simples as well. You're hot tonight, you girls. Thank you so much. But yeah, it's well worth watching. And obviously we give Nuff a lot of support from here. She's great. Okay, so what I'm going to talk to you about is what the Viking situation prior to them finding America. So a little bit of background. So we had yeah, it was really interesting, Green Eyes. It really was. Oh, did you Google her as well, Simples? Yeah, the Wood Plumpton Witch. Just a tale I'd kind of grown up with, and you hear quite a lot of it around here, especially with there being the Pendle Witches as well. So, it's quite Lancashire's quite a place for the old witchcraft and accused witches and so on. So yeah, it's really good. So the Vikings, as you know, they were from Scandinavia. So you've got to know. Oh, Tismy Denny, hi! You're just in time, lovely. I'm just about to start. I'm going to tell you my little bits and then I'm going to go on to the book, but I'm not going to read all of the chapter because when I went through it, some of it's a little bit monotonous. So I'm just going to try and give you a little bit of the background that I know first. So the Vikings, as you know, were from the Scandinavian countries. So Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland. But the Vikings that we're going to be talking about at the moment are the Norwegian Vikings. Big 'em up, big 'em up. And so they went from Norway and they'd started to expand and settle in different places. So it was, in Europe, mainly Western Europe. So you had some of the Vikings settled in northern France, which became Normandy. You've all heard of Rollo the Warrior. If you've watched the series Vikings, then it's Rollo. In that, it's Rollo, which is Ragnar's brother. And then they went west from Norway and started to settle in the British Isles. So you had Shetland, Orkney, Scotland, England. Then they went on to Ireland. They did Wales. Then they went northwest and they inhabited the Faroe Islands. And then from there, they went out and they settled in Iceland. Now, as far as Iceland goes, there are the Icelandic sagas, and they were written in the 13th and 14th centuries, and they cover historical events. And these Icelandic sagas contain details about the discovery of what they called Vinland. And this in turn led a lot of scholars to start looking more closely at the possibility that Vinland was actually North America. Oh, sorry, just looking at Sheila. Sorry, was on the loo, but I see Simpleton. Yes, thank you, Sheila. I'm sorry about that, lovey. So yeah, so what was written in the Icelandic sagas got scholars and historians and so on looking at thinking, well, maybe Vinland was actually North America. And even though they were written down in the 13th and 14th centuries, this was centuries after these events had taken place. So they knew that this was going to predate Columbus. So this was the main reason that they then started looking for Norse settlements in North America. So in the 10th century, so it was around about 950 AD, there was a chap called Eric the Red, and he was born in Norway. Now, excuse me. Now, his father was called Torvald, and he was banished from Norway because he murdered somebody. And so at that time, the Norwegians were already they'd already settled and were inhabiting Iceland. So Torvald took his whole family, left Norway, and went and settled in Iceland. Now, he died several years later, and it looks like hot-headedness probably ran in the family because a few years after he had died, Eric the Red, he was then banished from Iceland because he also killed someone, but he wasn't permanently banished. He was only banished for 3 years. Now, because he was unable to stay in Iceland, and he was thinking, well, because of the crimes that my father committed in Norway, I'm probably not going to be very welcome to go back to Norway. So he decided to explore northwest of Iceland, as there had been reports a few decades earlier of land in that direction. Now, a man named, I've got to try and get his name right now, I think it was Gunnbjörn Olsen. He was the one who'd made the reports because he was blown off course during a really bad storm, and he'd made mention that he'd reported seeing land. So Eric set off. I've done it again. God, I am so sorry. Every time I forget to mute my phone. Apologies for that, guys. So Eric set off, and eventually he did find Greenland, and he called it Grunland. And his 3 years of banishment, he spent there in Grunland, exploring, and he was planning out future settlements and so on. But he named it Grunland, in order to attract settlers, even though it wasn't particularly a green land. And there goes Cooper. However, settlers did come, and they did start to settle there. And Eric brought his own family from Iceland, and he had 4 children. He had 1 daughter, and he had 3 sons. He had Leif, which is, as his name was Eric, they were then known as Leif Erikson. He had a son called Torvald, and he had another called Thorstein. So he went, really. So he then went with his whole family from Iceland, and they went to settle in Greenland. Now, this is where there's a little bit of controversy, because for those people in America, as you know, Greenland is part, although it isn't mainland, Greenland is part of North America. So technically, the first person to set foot on what is now known as North American soil would have been Eric the Red, rather than his son. But that's just a little aside there. So I'll say Leif Erikson, because that's what rather than saying Leif, because that's what you know him as. So Leif was born around 970 AD, and in 999 AD, so he's still a young man, he travelled to Norway, and he went on a visit, and it was here that he adopted Christianity as a religion, because in Iceland, the people who went to Greenland, when Eric first, sorry, I skipped ahead of myself then. When Eric first settled there, and and he encouraged settlers to go, a lot of them were criminals. It was a bit like the early starts of Westerners going to Australia, and they used to banish people out there. Well, a lot of the settlers who followed him out to Greenland were criminals who'd been banished from maybe Iceland or Norway. There were a lot of Norwegian settlers who just couldn't eke a living out over there. And it was also people who were fleeing Scandinavia and Iceland and the Faroe Islands, because Christianity was now taking a bit of a, it was getting a firm footing in those countries. And a lot of the people who went out to Greenland were those who still wanted to practice the old religion. So they were the type of people, for the most part, who followed Eric the Red out to Greenland and began to build the settlements. So I also understand, and I've read something somewhere, that there were indigenous people already on Greenland, but they were because the Norwegian settlers, the Icelandic settlers, settled at the southernmost tip of Greenland. I believe that there were native tribes, peoples on the island, but they were far away. They were, you know, up at the other end. So the paths didn't cross. So if I stop there, has anybody got any questions before I carry on with this? Just because there's a little bit of a delay between StreamYard and chat, I'll just give it a minute or so. And I'll use this as a chance to take a sip of my brew before it goes stone cold. Okay, so isn't okay? Yeah, thanks, Sharon. I was just going to say, as nothing is coming up in chat, I shall carry on. So we go back to Leif, who was born around 970 AD, who then in 999 AD travelled to Norway. Simple to know, I think we're learning to behave and stay quiet for the lesson. Oh, I'm sorry. Please, if it starts sounding like a history lesson, give me a kick up the doodah, because I don't want it to be like that at all. So then in 999, Leif Erikson went and travelled to Norway, which was the land that his father was born in, his grandfather, and so on. And it's there that although Greenland was predominantly pagan, he then, for whatever reason, adopted Christianity. And it appears that the king gave him orders that he was to then return to Greenland and spread Christianity. So it's not exactly clear how the next step in this story happened, but it appears that as he was returning to Greenland, it's not, thank you, Simples. As he was returning to Greenland from Norway, he was blown way off course and he sighted land to the west. And this played on his mind back in Greenland, and he asked around, and he did find somebody who had already noticed this land. They'd seen it. Now, some people reckon that this other guy had actually set foot on, but there's no proof of that. But, you know, there are little stories. So anyway, he's speaking to this other guy, and he decided that he would, to try and find this land that he'd spotted, and this other Greenlander had told people about from about 30 years before, I think it was. He decided to try and follow this guy's route in reverse, because he'd also been blown off course and managed to, whether it was by the stars or the sun, he'd managed to get back to Greenland. So Leif Erikson decided to retrace this guy's return journey to Greenland, but do it in reverse and see if he could then. Hi, all in Walmart lurking. Hi, Suzanne. Hello, love. Good to see you. We're covering Vikings in America tonight, so hopefully it'll give you something to listen to while you're shopping. So this is what he decided to do. So a year later, in 1000 AD, he set off with a ship and a crew to explore in that direction. And he discovered what he called Helluland, which meant land of the very flat rocks. And we're thinking that was possibly modern day Baffin Island. So he then continued further south, and then he sighted somewhere that he called Markland, which meant the land of the forest. And again, we're thinking that that was possibly the coast of modern day Labrador. So after this, 2 days later, he landed in a new area where apparently they found it was full of wild growing wheat and grapes. They were in abundance, and it led to the name, you know, him to calling it Vinland. There's a little bit of discussion over what Vinland actually meant at the time. Some people think it may have meant wineland because of the similarity and the fact that there were grapes there, and this was documented. Some think that it could have meant land of the vines or land of the grapes. But anyway, for whatever reason, he named it Vinland. So then they returned to Greenland to inform the settlers that they discovered a great land. And there begins the Norse involvement on mainland North America. So that's what I know up to that point. Obviously, I have written it out so I could deliver it without me going and like and kind of. So that's where we're up to at the moment. So has anybody got any thoughts on that up to now before I start diving into the book and reading you what they say? I'm sorry, the dog's doing a little bit of hopping. Stop it. I have Vinlandy beside me, but I am in North Vinland. Oh, is it Vindelander? Is it the bit on Hadrian's wall simples? I think, or is that in Wales? I know that there is a Vindelander. Oh, that one, right? Okay. Yeah, well, you know, I've no idea what that name come from either. And don't forget, you know, the Vikings had been in the northeast anyway, so this was after that time. And Vindelander, you know, it could have just been a name that they heard and remembered. Didn't Dan Snow do a documentary about Newfoundland and found the first longhouse? Is it the same area? It's kind of in the same area. I've not seen that one from Dan Snow though, Sharon. I haven't seen that at all. Only because I don't like him. That sounds awful, doesn't it? I'll forgo learning something and expanding my historical knowledge, but I don't watch it because I can't stand Dan Snow. Oh, it's in Wallsend. See, I love these names, Wallsend. And it that does exactly what it says on the tin as well, doesn't it? Right. So, hopefully this isn't going to bore you, but I am now going to start reading a little bit from the book, and I'll do a page and then check chat and do it that way. So let me just find the spec. So we have got what they call, it says exactly the end of the wall. Yeah, it is great, isn't it? I just love names like that. Oh, simple as I'm on the other side of Hadrian's Wall, about 20 minutes away. I love the fact that the wall is still standing. Do you know, maybe we should do a live one night about that. You know, the wall and the Roman occupation, and I'm getting my Romans and Norwegians all mixed up. No, don't worry about it. It's all history, isn't it, Simples? Yeah, and I do like the Roman period and the fact that they never ever managed to invade and take over in Scotland. Go on. Okay, so here comes the book. Yeah, it would be Sharon, because I do really like Roman history as well. So, the saga of the Greenlanders, which is considered to be more or less factually exact, claims that Leif set sail in 1002 or 1003 to follow this, and the chap who I was mentioning before, his name was Bjarni, to follow Bjarni's course along with 35 other explorers. And the saga mentions that the initial area he located while sailing northwest was covered with level rocks. So it was that he named Helluland, which is Norwegian for place of the flat stones. Oh, I'd got it slightly wrong. I think I said flat rocks, didn't I? Historians generally conclude this area to have been Baffin Island. Then he turned south and went to a land that was level and lush with pale sandy shorelines. And he named this area Markland, which is Norwegian for forest, which is what historians recognise to most likely have been Labrador. Then he journeyed southwest for a further 2 days, and his group set out from Markland, where, on yet again discovering land, they named it Vinland. They went ashore and established a small outpost at a place called Leifsbode, which is Leif's Booths, where they spent a comfortable winter. With tasty grapes to be picked and a large number of ready available salmon in the waters, they found it to be an excellent place for a settlement. The climate was mild, and there was very little ice, So they decided to spend the winter there, and unlike Greenland, wood was not difficult to find. Come the spring, Leif and his men cut out a large amount of timber and set off for home. While returning home, Leif found and saved a shipwrecked Icelandic individual, and the reason as to how he came to be given the moniker Leif the Lucky. Ericsson's visit and the resulting colonisation of Labrador are accepted as historical fact, with the archaeological investigations of Lancer Meadows unquestionably indicating that a Norse settlement existed there in around 1000 AD. In contrast to the Icelandic sagas, the sagas of the Greenlanders tells how Ericsson's journey to North America was not, oh sorry, the dog's knocking me, stop it, was not by mere chance, but rather that the Viking explorer had heard about a peculiar land in the west from the Icelandic merchant Bjarni Herjolfsson, who, even though he did not make a landing, had passed Greenland over 10 years earlier and sailed by the coast of North America, whereupon, as mentioned above, Ericsson purchased Bjarni's ship, assembled a group of 35 explorers, and followed Bjarni's route backwards. After crossing the Atlantic Ocean, the Norse came across a rough, infertile land that sits within modern-day Canada's borders that Ericsson named Helluland, which we spoke about, because of the exhausting environment. The Norsemen travelled south towards a rich tree-covered area named as Markland, and that was likely a northwest part of Newfoundland. The Norse wintered there and benefited from the warmer climate. So, after wintering in Vinland, Ericsson's men travelled home to desolate Greenland with the required timber and abundant sacks of grapes. But after this voyage, Ericsson would never return, because having succeeded his father, Eric the Red, as the chief of the Greenland settlement, he decided to take command of affairs there until his death. And even though other Vikings continued to journey westward to Vinland for about a decade to take advantage of North America's abundant resources, the Viking travellers stayed in windswept Greenland. This may have been due to the fierce battles that occurred between them and the indigenous people of North America, and the resulting death of Torvald, Ericsson's brother. I'll just stop there for a second and check chat. No problem, Denny. I'll just carry on because nobody's put any questions. If you do that, if you want me to stop at all or have anything to ask, just type it in the chat and I'll come back to it. But I'm going to do a couple of pages at a time and stop. So this is the interesting bit. The first encounter between the Norse and First Nation peoples of North America did not go well for either side. 3 years after the discovery of Vinland, Leif's brother Torvald was preparing for the second summer of a subsequent expedition. He and his men were roaming an area at the mouth of a fjord when they noticed 3 humps on a sandy beach. Upon further investigation, the humps turned out to be canoes under which 9 men were hiding. The Norsemen caught and slaughtered 8 of them, but the 9th man got away and raised the alarm amongst his people. Later that day, Torvald and his men saw a swarm of canoes coming down the fjords toward them. Outnumbered, they took refuge on their ship, and with the advantage of iron weapons, they did defeat the attackers. However, Torvald was hit with an arrow in the armpit during the battle and died in a matter of seconds. On the headland, as he had asked, Torvald's men gave him a Christian burial using crosses to mark his grave at both ends. Leif is recorded to have been the first European to set foot on American soil, and Torvald was the first to be buried there. Considering the following history of the Americas, its discovery by the Norse turned out to be an exceptional phenomenon and is amongst the most studied aspects of the Viking Age, which is between 800 and 1200 AD. a period that saw Scandinavian pillagers, traders and settlers play active roles across a large swathe of Europe, as well as some parts of Africa's Mediterranean coast, and even as far east as Baghdad. All in all, Viking Age Scandinavians arguably managed to see a greater portion of the world than any other previous Europeans. The Norse route to America is occasionally portrayed as the stepping stone route, starting with one island, then a drive on to the next, with relatively short crossings between them. The initial step came about 200 years before Leif's discovery of Finland, with the conquest and colonisation of Scotland's Northern Isles, not long after 800 AD. This was then followed 25 years later by the settlement of the Faroe Islands, after which they came to Iceland in around 870 AD. The next stage was the establishment of the Norse Greenland settlement by Eric the Red in the 980s AD. As Greenland is geographically part of the North American continent, this should be viewed as the first European settlement in the Americas. Leif avoided contact with the locals. With his first experience of the First Nation peoples having been an unfriendly one, yet Thorvald's death at the hands of the native peoples was still not enough to prevent no less than 2 more attempts by the Norse to settle in Vinland. The first of these occurred around 2 years after Thorvald's death. It was commanded by Thorfinn Karlsefni, an Icelandic trader, who brought his wife, Gudrid, 65 men, 5 women, and an assortment of animals. He took 3 ships and a crew of Norsemen to travel to a newly found territory that supposedly guaranteed considerable wealth. Following the course that Leif Erikson had spearheaded 7 years before, Thorfinn sailed up Greenland's coast and crossed the Davis Strait before turning south around Baffin Island until he reached Newfoundland. There, Thorfinn and his crew discovered the wealth they'd been guaranteed, which included timber, fish, pasture, and game. The gathering spent an uneventful winter at Leifsbudir, during which time Gudrid gave birth to a child, Snorri, recognised as the first European to be conceived in America. So that's Snorri's little claim to fame. In the spring, the gathering experienced its first contact with indigenous peoples, who appeared at Leifsbudir to exchange hides. The Norse called... Oh, sorry about this. The dog's just thrown his toy at me. The Norse called them skrængs, possibly meaning screamers. Originating from a Stone Age culture, the skrængs were won over by the Norsemen's iron weapons and devices, but he ordered his men not to make any exchanges with them. There was another encounter between the Europeans and the indigenous peoples later that summer. A man from his group murdered one of the natives and was said to have attempted to steal some of their belongings. So they didn't take kindly to this, and they made efforts to avenge the death. Was resisted by the Norse, but as a result, and after staying for 1 more winter at Leifsbudir, he decided to leave for Greenland. Needless to say, the dealings with the First Nation peoples went downhill from that point onwards. Thorfinn and his family, along with his remaining group, deserted the North American settlement, maybe because of the barrage of arrows that were being shot at them. Importantly noting that archaeologists have discovered arrowheads buried beside the remains of Norsemen. After travelling to Greenland and Norway, Thorfinn eventually created a settlement in Iceland. So I'll just check chat and see if anything's come up. Simple as Canada, a more modern name. I have an old book called Sheila of Eskdale. It's about an old cross with Viking markings in Cumbria. Sharon, it must have been me in a past life. I'm a Viking. Very interesting. I don't often see my name anywhere. They came right through my city and went on to Sheila. It's a story about a Viking lady, and the cross was named after her you can still buy the book. It's by Nicholas Size. Oh, I might look into that then, Sharon. I like things like that. So, are you all guys okay for me to carry on with this? So, the exact location of where Thorfinn's family finally settled is currently unknown, even with the numerous attempts by archaeologists and historians to break through the mystery's opaque sheen. No, oh, sorry guys. He's barking now because he's after attention. No, don't worry. You know, we always do this in chats. It's interesting because you don't have to stick to this topic. It's absolutely fine. And I've just seen something I didn't know. Oh, hello, Marie. Hello, my lovies. So glad I caught you tonight. It is always quite late here by me. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Marie. This is the thing when we're all at different places in the world, isn't it? But I'm just doing a read through of the Vikings in America. I did a little bit about what I know about them, and then I've gone on to reading this book. So hopefully it won't be too boring, but a lot of people didn't realise, or didn't know the full history. So I shall just carry on, and I'll come back to chat in a couple of minutes. So as I said, the exact location of where Thorfinn's family finally settled is currently unknown, even with the numerous attempts by archaeologists and historians to break through the mystery's opaque sheen. John Steinberg, an archaeologist at the University of California in Los Angeles, reported in September of 2002 that he had found the remaining parts of a field manor in Iceland. He suggested that this was the place where Thorfinn and his family spent the remainder of their lives, and was supported in his claim by other researchers. The area surrounding Thorfinn's home in Iceland seems to have amazingly wide implications. For instance, it could reveal new insights into early Viking involvement in North America, which was first proven by an explorer named Helga Ingstad and his archaeologist wife, Anne Steiner Ingstad. In 1960, both of them found the remains of a Norse settlement in Newfoundland, which was likely had been in existence from around the year 1000. So, yet, these findings aside, the main records of the Norse journey to the New World can be found in the Icelandic sagas. These are centuries-old stories that have caused researchers to try and isolate facts from Norse legends, and John Steinberg's findings, if proven, could solidify the current understanding of Viking history. Only a single further journey into Vinland is documented, and that's... Oh, sorry about that. I just lost my page. A single further journey into Vinland is documented. Erik Knutsen, the Bishop of Greenland, and he sailed for Vinland in 1123, but the fate of this attempt is unknown. According to scholars, the saga of Eric the Red and the saga of the Greenlanders provide a great deal of the knowledge about Norse voyages to North America. Tor Hjaltalin, an Icelandic researcher who regulates archaeological activity in northwestern Iceland, states that these sagas were presumably first recorded between 1200 and 1300 AD. He adds that they were likely composed either from the oral tales of people in that period or from some other missing documents. I'm probably with him, thinking they probably come from word of mouth. Although the two Viking stories provide comparable records of Thorfinn's travels to the New World, they diverge on some noteworthy points regarding his arrival in Iceland. Based on Eric the Red's saga, Thorfinn returned to his homeland in Rheinland, but based on the Greenlanders saga, Thorfinn stayed in Glaumbær because his mother was less than friendly to his wife. The Vikings' voyage out of Scandinavia seemed to have occurred due to either discomfort or rebellion. During this time, as they ventured away from Scandinavia, Harald Finehair, a Norse king, was accumulating power in Norway. The Viking leaders who left were either uncomfortable following the requests of Harald, or they did not want to pay him tribute. In 874 AD, the Vikings travelled to Iceland, which is portrayed as one of the world's last substantial habitable islands to have been colonised by a human population. In 1930, a Norwegian anthropologist shed more light on Viking migration out of Scandinavia, as he considered the Viking migration to be a grand relocation and one in which the nobles travelled and the lower classes remained behind. Right, I shall come back into chat and I'll have a look at what is going on. Let's have a little sneaky peeky. Everyone's just saying hello. That's fine. Oh, it's lovely that you're here, Marie. That's great. Marie, you can speak to us like any time. We're always happy to see you here. We absolutely are, Sheila. We absolutely are, and it's great that you've managed to come in. So, let's have a little further look about what they've said about Eric the Red. Now, it's about some fights here. So, nevertheless, life in this area was not perfect, because even after creating settlements that appeared to be organised and settled, they continued to look for fights to prove their might. That goes back to what we were talking about the other day, wasn't it? With all the sports and the activities revolve around fighting, and let's all get to Valhalla. We'll just be real obstinate fighting devils. So it appears to me, or one of the old the jokes about the Vikings was that, you know, they'd find an argument in an empty home. So if a Norse felt insulted, he would become bent on vengeance. The Norse, therefore, had a tendency to retaliate and fight others, aside from the tendency to war in order to expand their territory. So the subsequent grisly fights echoed across Iceland. According to Stephenson, 1930, the eventual discovery of North America hangs upon a fashionable practice of the day, that of man-killing, which, like cocktail shaking in Prohibition America, was punished but was indulged by the best people. I think that's quite a good analogy, really, isn't it? With this statement, Stephenson seems to be making reference to a die-hard fighter such as Eric the Red, and Eric the Red continually pushed the Norse ability to tolerate disputes. Thus, his fellow leaders had him frequently exiled. At first, Eric was forced to move to Iceland's west coast. However, he was eventually ousted from the territory completely. So then, based on the Icelandic sagas, Eric's homestead was situated on the west side of Greenland. The muddled name for this barren, cold island covered by an immense ice sheet originates from the pariah's attempt to bait different travellers, which I mentioned before in the warm-up, didn't I? Eric had heard stories of interesting regions to the west from a Norse mariner who was travelling to Greenland but was blown off course. And then his sons, Leif, Torvald and Thorfinn, are renowned for their voyages and as such are given a special place in Viking history. Thorfinn is said to come from the same ancestry as a king of Ireland named Ugaval and a queen from the British Isles named Aud, A-U-D, the Deep-Minded. His childhood started on a farmstead not far from Glambear in Iceland. Thorfinn, who was a rich trader famous for his astuteness, was also a respectable leader. It was on a journey to trade in Greenland that he came across his wife Gudrid, the charming widow of Torvald, who he later married. At Brattahlid, which was Eric's dwelling in Greenland's eastern state, Thorfinn participated in board games, while he arranged his outing to Vinland, estimated to be around about the winter of 1005 AD. And Eric the Red saga presents this preparation as rowdy and random to some degree, taking note of the different Norse chieftains who chose to engage in the expedition. Anyway, despite the fact that the Viking settlement in North America was short-lived, as a result of the threatening tendency of the locals there, the Viking states of Iceland and Greenland were by and large effective. Tax records in Iceland of 1095 shows that 72,000 Scandinavians were living there at that time. That's quite a substantial number of people, isn't it? And archaeologists say that around 5,000 Vikings were living in Greenland by around 1150 AD. So archaeologists have uncovered evidence that provides backing for the stories of the Norse voyages to America from the sagas. In 1960, the Norwegian pioneer Helge Ingstad scoured the shores of Labrador and Newfoundland for indications of a settlement, and he discovered it on the northmost tip of Newfoundland at Lonso Meadow. A worldwide group of archaeologists that included Ingstad's wife Anne, mentioned earlier, uncovered Viking relics which can be traced back to around 1000 AD. Interestingly, the remains of the Norse settlement are currently part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That I'm actually really glad to hear that, because I know that Raven had said the other night that, you know, for some reason they didn't really like to talk about the Norse settlements and the Norse discovery of that area of Canada. So it's quite nice to know that it is, well, if it's UNESCO, it's going to have protection, isn't it? So the terrain around here has some similarity to the saga portrayals of Finland. There, the winters were harsh and wild grapes unavailable. So it's most likely not Lisbodir, rather it's thought to be Lanso Meadows, if I'm saying that correctly. As of yet, there are a few signs that the Vikings made it to either Central or South America. However, a French anthropologist by the names of Jacques I'm terrible at French, I'm so sorry. Jacques I don't know if it's Mahieu, claims that he has uncovered the remains of a Norse town containing a divider etched with Norwegian engravings. He believes that the Norse tenants governed over a territory of Bolivia and Peru for a long period of time, sometime around 800 years ago. Wow. Furthermore, the presence of a now extinct tribe in South America has come to light. They were thought to have lived in the far western ranges of the Amazon River, and they are referred to as the Chachapoyans or cloud warriors. I've heard of these actually. The physical appearance of these individuals is known because they preserved their dead so well. They were tall, fair-haired, and light-skinned. A few scientists suggest that they most likely originated from Northern Europe, as in they seem to be of Scandinavian origin. So wow, look at that, even as far as the Amazon. There is sufficient evidence of a Viking presence in America going as far back as 3 millennia. At Peterborough in Canada, which is 86 miles east of Toronto, there is a vast limestone boulder that has a number of antiquated engravings inscribed upon it. And one engraving is titled Slave of Woden from Norway, which states that someone had been searching for amazing copper. The engraving is dated to around 1500 BC, which means that it was inscribed nearly 3,000 years before Columbus arrived. And this engraving may reveal insight into the 5,000 archaic copper mines that were found near the northern side of Lake Superior. While Columbus is honoured with a federal holiday, the man thought to have led the first European voyage to North America has not been completely overlooked. Again, we talked about this the other night. In 1964, President Lyndon Johnson made an announcement that proclaimed October the 9th to be Leif Erikson Day in order to pay tribute to the Viking adventurer, his crew, and the nation's Nordic American legacy. The nearness of the days in honour of Erikson and Columbus is only by chance, as October the 9th was picked because it is in commemoration of the 1825 entry of a ship in New York that was carrying the first group of Norwegian settlers to the United States. So, there you go, guys. That concludes that chapter on the Vikings in North America. Any thoughts? Because that has just, I hadn't got that far when I was kind of speed reading and skimming, and I hadn't got that far as relates to the Cloud Warriors and the fact that, you know, potentially the Vikings were in South America. I just find it, I find it absolutely fascinating. Right, so I'm going to come back into Le Chat. Let me have a little look what's going on. I know it's just I'm not always catch me awake, Sheila. I see now what you meant, Marie. It's nice to see you here and wide awake, all bushy-tailed and all that. Oh, what is this bushy tail that you speak of, Lady Witch and you squirrels? Awoke and hyper at dawn. Well, squirrels never knew they went so far south. I didn't know either, but obviously I'd heard about the Cloud Warriors. I didn't know that bit about, you know, Lake Superior, though. And that thing that, you know, as far back as, you know, 3,000 years, that just blows your mind, doesn't it? Peterborough, Canada. Engraving is dated to around 1500 BC, meaning it was 3,000 years before Columbus arrived. No, it's absolutely fine, Sheila. Don't worry about it. I'm just reading away here. You think the Vikings introduced the squirrels were to, do you mean into the British Isles? Or do you mean into America? Just going to say, do they have red squirrels in America? Or because I know it's the grey squirrels are the ones that came from America here, because they are they're causing a real problem for our indigenous red squirrels. Oh, were you? Oh, sorry, Sheila. I thought you'd been serious. Yeah, they are cute, aren't they, Suzanne? Little squirrels. They got red squirrels up near my dad's, you know, if you go into the forest up there, but they're all grey squirrels round here. There is a red squirrel reserve out near Southport, which is going towards the coast. I think it's is it called Freshfields, I think, and that is that's a red squirrel sanctuary, but they're very small pockets left in England. It just shows you can't trust history. We're informed of as what happened. Well, I know, and you know, if they're finding preserved bodies in like Bolivia and Peru that they can identify as, you know, Scandinavian, and these are thousands of years old, well, you know, because it's like I mentioned yesterday, you know, they were a seafaring nation, weren't they? You know, they were adventurers and explorers. Why would they never have attempted to settle in, we'll use us, for example, in the British Isles? But it's quite, what I do find quite, I don't know, quite surprising, shall we say, is that they obviously, if they settled in South America, they obviously had a warmer welcome from those indigenous people than they did when they were in Greenland and Vinland. Well, not Greenland, but Vinland especially. You know, when they, because obviously they didn't want them around, did they? But and they abandoned the settlements eventually. But to actually have settled and get to that stage in South America, I find quite surprising. I mean, it'd be interesting to know if, I mean, obviously they mentioned that boulder that's near Toronto that's covered in runes, but it would be interesting to know if any like runic work or something similar has made its way into maybe the Bolivian, Peruvian culture. You know, if they had a settlement there, because it's like anything, you know, you see something, you think, oh, that's quite unusual. I'll start using that in my artwork. So, hi, Frida. Sheila, never trust history. Everything is always getting older or earlier. Well, it is. Well, look what happened with that Cheddar Man. You know, when it came into the paper, and again, I think that was, you know, I'm not going to be political, but I think at the time it was done for political reasons. They found this, the remains, and then all of a sudden they were saying that this was a black-skinned, blue-eyed individual, and they put. I just think that kind of coincided with the issues that people had. Coming up to the election and the immigration issues and so on that were going on, and then it turned out that the picture that had been published in the newspaper didn't look like the reconstruction they'd made anyway, and all the archaeologists were saying that, you know, you can't determine a shade of skin color, you know, that you can't do it through DNA. You can tell if somebody is of a certain race, but you can't determine the shade of skin. So there are usually, you know, different agendas that would mean that certain elements of history are either manipulated or hidden. And like Raven said, there seems to be some, I don't know, concerted effort to downplay the Norse settlements in North America. Oh no, that's absolutely fine, Frida. I just did a bit of chatting at the beginning, and I've read through the first chapter which was on North America, and I've just finished that now. So, because obviously I don't want to do these, make them too boring and just start droning on. So I thought if I do this every night, that I do one of these, maybe spend an hour talking about what I know, then reading some excerpts from the book, and then throwing it open to chat and see what people think. And if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. We can talk about just general chit chat and see how everybody's getting on. But yeah, I think my my, I don't know, I wouldn't call it control freakiness. I would call it more, it's not even quite OCD, but it's getting there. I do like to have a plan. I'm a bit like the A-team. I like to have a plan, and I love it when a plan comes together. So at least if I can start off some of these lives with, even if it's just half an hour to an hour of structure, then I feel like I've done my good deed. I'm spreading the Viking message, and then we can all have a bit of a laugh and a chat. Because I'm not probably going to be on. I definitely won't be online tomorrow, because I won't be here. I know it will be about the Vikings in America tonight. We'll catch up on what I missed tomorrow. No, it's absolutely fine. Sheila, no, skin colour takes on the soil, mud or peat colouring. That's it, that it's buried in. But they can tell where they live through the teeth and what they ate and what area, etc. Yeah, absolutely. And you know all of this, don't you? And it was the fact that it just grated on me a bit, that just for whatever political reason or I don't know, that the papers chose to publish the reconstruction of Cheddar Man with nearly jet black skin, when in fact that wasn't the case. So yeah, and my point being that, why hide this period of history from America? You know, because whether it's a period of history that we might find embarrassing, we don't want to acknowledge, and this goes in our own countries. We will all have something that we wish hadn't happened. You know, if you look at the British Empire, you know, in Victorian England, you know, when they were expanding the empire, it treated some of indigenous peoples in different countries absolutely appallingly, you know, and that is a period of history, not about the expansion of the empire, but about the way that native peoples were treated by the empire. But that's a period of history that, you know, many people go, oh, well, let's not talk about that. But it happened. It happened. We might not be happy about it, but it is what develops our country into what it is and our people into who we are. And it's exactly the same with some of these archaeological discoveries. Pretending they didn't happen doesn't mean that that period of history didn't happen. And it all has helped in some way, one way or another, to shape the country as it is now, whichever country that may be. So I don't know if any of you, you know, you share that opinion or not, but that's just for what it's worth. That's just my opinion. Sheila, same as they're trying to hide the Black Pharaohs, it's all political and one-upmanship. Yes, whatever truth we have learned had an agenda behind it, which is why we think it is the truth. Yeah, and another thing, oh God, I'm going to go off at a complete tangent now. It's really, I've had this discussion with Mr. Sexy as well, because we like talking about things and we like having discussions about history. You know, a period of history people do not like to talk about is you know, Germany during the Second World War and Adolf Hitler's involvement. Now, we want to talk about history, periods of history that we find embarrassing or uncomfortable, or that we don't want to talk about, but that will have shaped a country as it is. Well, my opinion on this is, yeah, we don't want to talk about what Hitler did or didn't do because it makes people cringe. But the way, and this I will give him the credit for, the way that he turned around prior to what, you know, World War II, the way that he managed to turn the economy around in Germany, you know, he was popular. The people loved him. He gave them back their pride in their country, you know, and no one before or since Hitler has managed to do with a country's economy what he did. Because at one point, their currency had absolutely no value. People were wheeling wheelbarrows full of money in order to buy a loaf of bread, you know. And then look what happened prior to World War II. They're suddenly booming. The economy is booming. Industry is booming. Manufacturing is booming. So, and that's just one of my examples. It's the fact that, yes, it's an embarrassing and uncomfortable period of history, but you can't take away some of the amazing things that happened. So, oh, hi, Sid. Welcome in, love. Certain conquests are portrayed in a sort of romantic way. Others are portrayed as barbaric, depending on the flavour of the day. That's true. It is true. Let's see. Simple said, yes, there is a lot to be said in that regard, but why? There are links to the USA during and after. Hey up all. Hello, hello. Let's see what else I've missed. Gosh, my eyes tonight. Frida watched the first episode of The Last Kingdom today. Very good. Thank you for recommending. Oh, if you enjoyed the first one, you're going to love it. You are going to love it, and you'll completely binge watch. But that is quite, the character Uhtred of Bebenberg is actually, he is a real character. But again, like the Viking series, they have kind of used a bit of artistic license. But as far as the way they live, and as far as the Viking lifestyle and the Saxon lifestyles, it is pretty, you know, it's not that far from the truth. So yeah, I think you'll really enjoy that if you like that period of history. But yeah, it's great. I love it. Green Eyes, I watched the Black Pharaohs on Discovery a few weeks ago. Let me see what else. Everybody's welcoming Sid. So yeah, so I'm really sorry if anybody's taken any offence at me using Hitler as an example there about the economy, but it's the same type of thing, isn't it? And for whatever reason, and I'd love it if Raven were around, because she was the one that mentioned for whatever reason they don't seem to like acknowledging that there was, you know, this Norse settlement or North presence in Canada. But I really do think that oh sorry, wouldn't have wanted to be born in those days. Frida, I would love to go back. I would love it. Only because I could kill people I didn't like without having to speak to them, you know. Yeah, so I think now I'm surprised that this book hasn't covered, although it's just mentioned it then in America. Now, whether it's because it's including South America as the Americas, because you only have to think about North America, but I want to now find out some more information on these cloud warriors and you know, the settlements in South America. So as it's not in this book, I'll have to go and do some research elsewhere. Oh, sorry, Marie. I'm going to close my eyes and listen, and we'll probably fall asleep. Good night. Good night, Marie. And thank you very much for coming in. Thank you so much. So yeah, so I don't know what you think about that. You know, before we wrap up this series, because it's going to take quite a while to get through if we're just doing an hour here and there a night. But yeah, I'm going to do some research some research on these South American Scandinavian people, these cloud warriors, and see what I can dig up. Simples, I would stab people I don't like and live with animals. Yeah, that's me. Sharon, 30s Berlin would have been wonderful. Yes, it would have. It would, you know, prior to all the dark side coming out, that was, you know, the country was absolutely flourishing. How did he do that? You know, there's yeah. But anyway, obviously this isn't about the Third Reich or Germany or what have you. But yeah, but it's the same thing. So yeah, I would be really fascinated to know why people don't really want to talk about them in America. And I tell you what else I would love to know. I don't know if Joe's still around or Lady Witch, if you could enlighten us, anybody who's listening from America. What does anybody know which tribe that would have been? You know, that attacked them when in Labrador. I'd just be interested to know which First Nation tribe it would have been. What year are you talking about for South American Vikings? Sid, you won't believe this. They've found 15. Oh, hang on a minute. Is it 1500 BC? Let me just check. No, actually, it doesn't. It doesn't give a date for those. It just says that they were. Well, let's have a look. No, it does. About 800 years ago. So they found, you know, there's Norwegian engravings. They found the remains of a Norse town, and then the remains of the people, because they were quite well preserved, that look Scandinavian in origin, called the Chachapoyas, which means cloud warriors. So they were there in Central and South America. And I'm just going through this again. And then also, this was even further back, because you might not have been in when we just mentioned this. In St. Peterborough, which is 86 miles east of Toronto, there is a vast limestone boulder that has a number of antiquated engravings inscribed on it. One engraving is titled Slave of Woden, from Norway, which states that someone had come searching for amazing copper. And the engraving is dated to around 1500 BC, which means that it was inscribed nearly 3,000 years before Columbus arrived, and it may reveal insight into the 5,000 archaic copper mines that were found near the northern side of Lake Superior. So they're actually finding evidence that means, Scandinavians were potentially, 2,500 years prior to Leif Erikson, they were already in North and South America. Go figure. I mean, what do you think of that? It just fascinates me. I mean, I don't think there's probably any other nation or race of people that explored the world the way that the Vikings did. I mean, the British obviously went off, the English, to be more precise, went off discovering and conquering and what have you, but these were already known worlds, weren't they? I can understand Canada because they kind of island hopped via Greenland. Yes, they did. Yeah, we mentioned that before, which was the, they went from Norway to the British Isles, then to the Faroe Isles, then to Iceland, then to Greenland, and then from Greenland to Vinland. So it's no great stretch that they, then tootled around through Canada. But how did they get to Peru and Bolivia? Could it have been, again, another accidental discovery where, a huge storm, a tornado, a hurricane, whatever, blew them off course from Greenland, and then they just ended up going down the east coast of America? And maybe they just decided to keep going down the east coast of America and just to get the lay of the land, or maybe to attempt to draw some form of a map, by studying the coastline. The boats weren't capable of transatlantic voyages. Well, they still were covering the North Atlantic. You look at the that those boats were a hell of a lot stronger and more capable than than we give them credit for. Actually, yes, Sharon, the Russia and Alaska route, because we forget, don't we? We just look at a map from our perspective. We forget that actually turn the globe around, and because there was a land bridge originally there anyway, wasn't there, between Russia and Alaska? So yeah, I mean if you look at the the North Sea and going into the Atlantic, and is it the Bering Straits? I'm thinking, going between Norway and the Faroe Isles, and then the Faroe Islands to Iceland, they are pretty choppy. They are pretty choppy waters, and then it is still a fair trek between Iceland and Greenland. So, have I heard of the Perry Rice map? I haven't, Sheila. Do you want to tell us what that's about? I mean, if you mention it, I might have heard about it, but the name isn't ringing a bell with me. Frida, so Christopher Columbus didn't discover America then? Were the American Indians there when the Vikings arrived? Yes, they were. They were. And again, there's been talk about, the Native Americans, when did they arrive in America? Were they always there, or did they also come across the land bridge before America separated? Because don't forget, in however millions of years ago, that it was one huge continent, wasn't it? And then it started to break up into, so then you got Europe, and you got America, and what was it called? Was it called was it Pangea? It was called. I can't remember the name of it now. because prehistoric times aren't really my thing, but it was like one huge landmass that eventually started to break up and form the continents as we now know them. So it shows Iceland and Greenland perfectly before it was covered in ice. Oh, right. Dated 1513. Really? Wow. Oh, I'll have to have a look into that then, Sheila. Thank you. So Perry Rice map. Right, I'll remember that. I mean, there have been people who've said that, you know, Greenland wasn't as bleak as it was made out, you know, that he wasn't trying to, Eric the Red wasn't trying to con people to go there. But it was still very rocky, and it wasn't going to be as warm and as lush as, you know, go back to Iceland or Scotland or the Faroe Islands. Sid Vicious, it's the amount of provisions required for that length of journey in the relatively small boats. Yeah, yeah. No, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. It's perfect. We only contoured the shape via sonar and satellites, but they knew about it. And I know how. I mean, cartography is an amazing skill anyway, isn't it? You know, when you look at some of the ancient maps, they're pretty accurate. You know, they're never going to be perfect, but they're fairly or reasonably accurate, that we can identify, oh yeah, that looks a bit like Britain, or that looks a bit like it might be Russia or something. But yeah, how can you get something that detailed? Just go back through chat and make sure that I haven't missed anything out. So yeah, so Frieda, I hope that answered your question about the Native Americans. But yeah, that they were there, and and when you play this one back and you have a listen, you will hear that, you know, that the Americans didn't take very kindly. The Native Americans didn't take very kindly to the hairy ass Vikings landing in Vinland. So I know America is huge, but did they stop there? What do you mean, the Vikings that came from Greenland? They're like Leif Erikson and Torvald and what have you, and Thorfinn. They didn't stay there. Not where we're talking about. You know, Labrador and Newfoundland. They didn't stay. They just didn't think that the fight was worth it. But if you then look at what they're saying about the rock that's found near Toronto, which is around 1500, was it 1500? Yeah, 1500 BC. Then there were obviously Vikings. Now maybe that's why the Native Americans just wanted to run them off when they landed in Vinland, because they'd already had you know, they'd already had contact with them passing through, and stories get passed down, and the fact that these warriors came through and slaughtered everybody. So if you see them again, see these people with the blonde hair or the red hair and the white skin, send them off. Yeah, they did. They kept returning. Sorry about this, Simples. We've got the dog now wanting attention. Stop. Sid Vicious. So I'm thinking, to get to South America, they may have gone overland or hugged the coastline, but they would have to sack a village or two on the way, and sure there'd be evidence. Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. You know, maybe they travelled down the east coast of America, like you say, hugging the coastline. You know, they could go ashore, they could maybe hunt, they could fish. They'd obviously have to do it at a time of year where they could, you know, the fruit or vegetables or what have you were in abundance, because I couldn't see doing that trip during the winter, and especially with winter storms as well, being very productive. Maybe they did sack a village or two, but would there have been evidence? because it's like, if you look over here with Saxon villages, because the Saxons we know they were here, we've got the writings, we've got, jewellery, we found Saxon hoards, but for the most part, and it's the same with Viking settlements as well, because they didn't use stone to build their settlements, it's very difficult to kind of find their settlements. Very difficult. They're incredibly rare. And it was the same with the Native Americans, wasn't it? They weren't using stone to build, and they did live, for the most part, quite a hunter-gatherer style of existence, where they would follow game. They'd have maybe a winter settlement and a summer camp. So these wouldn't have been made of anything that was significant enough to leave a mark if it had been burnt to the ground, ransacked, or what have you, by maybe Viking marauders coming down the coast. Maybe they'd find evidence by way of Viking weaponry if something was dropped, or, I mean, we don't know. Look at the size of America. There could actually be, at some point, there could be the remains dug up accidentally, and it could be a Viking warrior with a Viking sword and a shield, which will then prove that, yes, they were here at this particular time on this particular day, which would give us the evidence then to show which route they actually took to get to Bolivia. But yeah, it's all supposition, isn't it? Could they have gone another route? I mean, who's to say that they didn't come from the other direction? Because we know that the Vikings were carrying out raids in Russia. Who's to say they didn't go all the way across Russia and approach America from the other side? And maybe they'd gone further south from Russia. Who can say? Which would mean that it wasn't that far north when they would then cross over and maybe come further south down America, and possibly on the west coast rather than the east. It's just going to be a matter of time before somebody discovers something, if it's there. Again, it's just me rattling off with thoughts in my head. Oh, great. Oh, cool, Simples. That's what you meant as well. Yeah, it just fascinates me. It absolutely fascinates me. And unfortunately, it's that period of history where, the only things that you tend to find are either the rune stones that are written on, or bits of weaponry or ironwork. You'll find the odd bone or antler comb or brooches, but as far as the houses go, they're very, very rare. You'll even find the boats in Scandinavia, but they're rare. And it's such a shame, because I would, as Sid's asking the questions, I would love to know which route they took to get to South America. But as I promised, I will look into it, because this book has only just very briefly touched on it. So I'm going to do a little bit of research and try and find out more about these cloud warriors, and the way that they buried the dead, and where exactly these settlements were, and see if any historians have got any ideas or suggestions about how they thought they actually arrived there. I mean, is it any great stretch of the imagination that they could have done it via waterways from North America? Rivers, lakes, and so on, and rather than coming round the coast. Green Eyes, I've just looked at some maps on Google and they appear to hug the coastline. Yeah. That's what Sid and I are both saying. Frida, sorry to lower the tone, but a few months ago, a news notification came up on my feed about a very large Viking poo that they found. Yeah, well, they do, and they did find a lot in York. They find it all over the place, because obviously they did have the latrines. And in York, when they did a lot of excavations there, they found the Viking latrines. So they were going through the poo to basically see if they could find anything about diet and so on and so forth. And they did find that, you know, most of the people back in Viking York, they were infested with parasites, as you can imagine, because they didn't have the food hygiene standards we have now. So it wouldn't be a case of making sure you cooked meat to a certain temperature to kill any, any parasites, and possibly eating raw chicken and what have you. But they were finding seeds and so on in the poo, so it did give them a good indication as to what they'd been eating and how they lived and what the diet consisted of, because some Vikings in places like Shetland and Orkney, their diet consisted for the most part of fish, as you can imagine, herring and so on. And their middens are full of fish bones. So they were obviously catching and preserving fish, some of it possibly to trade so they could have other forms of meat. But yeah, and then they kind of corroborated that by looking in their poo. So it's not lowered the tone at all. It's all historical. Sid Vicious, or incoming conspiracy. There was a Scandinavian type race thousands of years BC all over the world, like before the Great Flood. Yeah, we can't rule it out, can we? Can't rule it out. That could have happened. I'm with you on that, because I like things like that, because you don't know, and even now they're proving, they're coming up with evidence that the out of Africa theory isn't accurate, because not for all of us. It is for some, but not for all, because they found that there was a parallel development of modern humans that was at the same time as humans, ancient humans were developing in Africa. The same thing, which was a divergent line, was also happening in Europe. So not all of us will find that we have come from that line of humans that developed in Africa. So, could that maybe link to where these people came from? Who's to say that there wasn't another line in that part of what then became America? It fascinates me. Green eyes, hop from the base of Greenland over to Canada, then south. Yes, yeah. Immediate ways via the coast. It is, and it's also probably the safest way, isn't it? Because you can get away quicker if you're going to encounter some terrible dangers when you're inland and you haven't got your boat with you. But at least this way you can keep a bit of distance between you and potentially any hostile tribes or dangerous animals or something. You can beat a hasty retreat in smaller boats back onto your big ship and keep going down the coast. Oh, amazing history. Thanks, KMAU Beauty. Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. It just fascinates me, and obviously, unless we've got solid archaeological evidence, then it's going to remain a topic of discussion and speculation, isn't it? And I do like the little fact that Sid threw in there, because we can't say that's not true. Some people can say it's unlikely, but we can't say it isn't true because we can't prove it's not true. Frida, yes, they did find parasites in it, and it was 20 centimetres long. A 20 centimetre long poo. My goodness. King Kong's finger. My brother used to say that if he'd ever done a huge poo, he'd go, I've done a King Kong finger. I wouldn't go in that bathroom for a while. And then I heard it being said, Neil said it on the In-Betweeners, and I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, oh my God, that's what my brother says. So yeah, there was a Viking somewhere who did a King Kong finger. 20 centimetres is a massive turd though, isn't it? I wonder how wide it was. Sorry. But yeah, that took some parting with, didn't it? I wonder what the length... Here, Green Eyes might know it then, you know, because she's been in the medical profession. And Simple's meerkat. What would you guys say is the kind of a length of an average poo? You know, before it gets pinched off? Or what would be the reason for a poo to not, you know, to have broken and come out 20 centimetres long? Sheila, was it broken or just a full lump of shit? I think she's saying it was a full lump of shit. It was a 20 centimetre long one. Greener says, I'm not sure. I'd say about 5 inches. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? What would... So 20 centimetres is bloody hefty. And we could then go into the realms of, could it have been a giant? Because giants existed, apparently. Simple's my experience of poo is that it is not solid. Oh, yeah, the gastro ward. 20 centimetres is only 7 inches. Yeah, but it's still a bigger than that. Nephilim, that's it, Sheila. And Nephilim and Anunnaki. A 7-inch turd is pretty big. So don't know if you've mentioned this, but Vikings invented the keel for boats, which is what gave them superiority for a long time. It is indeed, Sid. It really is. Oh, Green Eyes has seen him that long. Sorry, Sid. I'm just getting going off talking about the length of Viking poo. Oh, so there you go, Frida. Green Eyes has seen them of that length, but it's still big. Yeah, because the boats said, I mean, they were amazing. The knowledge that they had on boats, it was unrivaled by any other race or country, because those boats that they had, not only were they able of crossing the deep oceans and withstanding the storms, but they were also the design, and they didn't have to swap boats to then go inland. Those Viking ships were also capable of travelling in as little as 3 feet of water, which is another reason why they managed to, you know, to discover so much inland, and especially here in the British Isles. So their skill with boats and ships was just amazing. The shipbuilding skills. Said, I know Viking turds is important. Simple. Sounds like a constipated one eventually released lately into the wild. Google says between 4 and 7 inch. Another laugh vest. No, I'm determined not to. Sheila, did you hear about the giant caves in Iraq? But yes, I did. Sheila. That's a fascinating. The big red-headed 6-fingered giant. It's called the Kandahar giant, isn't it? Oh, the giant of Kandahar. Yeah, and lightweight, so they could carry them from river to river. That's true. They either carried them or they would use that log rolling technique as well. So I've been told. Frida Baxter, I don't know. I've never measured mine. Well, as I'm a lady, I'd just like to point out I neither fart nor poo. There's only little perfume puffs leave my body. Give me 1 second, please. I've got the dog has given himself indigestion, so I'm going to have to put him some natural yogurt in his bowl. So you'll hear a bit of clattering around here for a second. I'm sorry about this. Go on, eat that, lad. I am the queen. Yeah, Billy Connolly said that, didn't he? the Queen doesn't fart, or rather she's got a little chap who walks behind her, so when she farts he takes responsibility for it. The dog needs a poo. He might do, actually. He's just being a bit naughty. Good old Bristol stool chart for reference. Oh gosh, they had a stool chart. Robert Seffer does some good stuff regarding Vikings, giants, loads of stuff. Oh, great. Well, when you've learned how to drop links in chat, Sharon, you'll have to drop them in. But yeah, I know we've gone slightly off it, but yeah, that Kandahar giant. I often wondered if that could have possibly been some form of a giant Viking, you know, rather than a Nephilim or Anunnaki, you know, because think about it, really, you're talking Iraq and people there are, you know, darker skin color, darker hair color. This is a pale-skinned, red-headed giant. Is it a, you know, going out of the realms of possibilities? Is it a stretch of the imagination? I don't know, just throwing that out there. Said there's loads of evidence of giants and other races like before the pyramids and stuff. Yes, there is. There really is. And Sharon loves the giants. Yeah. I love all those stories. I love the stories. And some of them, you know, well, there have been giants found, weren't there? And they have in America, going back over there as well. You know, they found those burial mounds. They found, now I can't remember. Oh gosh, this is me again, half a job, Harry. I can't remember if this was in South America or North America, but they found, and I think it might have been, oh gosh, was it Barnum's or something, or one of the museums? They were very tall, red-headed kind of mummies, mummified skeletons, and they were kind of, you know, in the 7.5, 8 foot height. So is it any great stretch that then couldn't have been 9 or 10 foot ones? Greenhouse, I follow Nephilim giants and Forbidden History on Facebook. Oh, Sharon, let me see. Yes, the East Coast. And Sid, and every culture has a story of a great flood that wiped pretty much everything out. Yes, it did, Sid. It did. You know, you've got the biblical story, then you've also got the Atlantis story. That was it, Sheila. The Smithsonian Museum. That's the one that had these giants, because there were photographs taken with them, and then all of a sudden they just vanished. Faroe Islands pyramid, yes, yeah, and also, haven't they found? Aren't there supposedly pyramids in Australia as well? Or they found, you know, and then you go from there to what they think is in Antarctica and in the Arctic Circle. Yeah, yes, I've heard that, Sharon. The Smithsonian's hiding lots of stuff. Sheila, I would hate to part with a giant's offspring, but I'd be happy to have a go at the conception bit, you dirty bugger. Oh, no, I don't want any gigantic widgets. Thank you very much. I'm quite happy with the one I have. Obviously, not physically, I don't have one. Just want to get that straight. Yeah, Simples. All of these things that Green Eye's on about, and Sid and Sheila and Sharon, you know, they are the fascinating. Green Eyes, yeah, there's one not far from me, but the government won't let it be explored further. No. And also the government, they've been very naughty. I was watching, do you remember the other week I was talking about the Tasmanian tiger? God, look at this. We starts off on a Vikings in America and go completely off in another direction. I was watching something about the Tasmanian tiger, and because they're doing the logging in Tasmania, and the government, because they think that, you know, that there are little pockets of these Tassie tigers that are still around, and because the logging industry is so lucrative, they are they think that they do know that the Tassie tigers are still there, but because the logging industry is so lucrative, they're not stopping it. And what these loggers are doing, they cut down these gigantic 300, 400, 500-year-old trees, and then they basically napalm the area afterwards with no regard for any of the wildlife there. You know, so it's yeah, they cover up quite a lot of stuff, because one guy from the government was saying, oh, no, that there might be one or two little, you know, little creatures are killed during this, but yeah, they're covering it up. Right, let's see what we've got in chat. Oh, Facebook page of Giants and Forbidden History. Yeah, Simple's Vikings to Tigers again. Oh, there's a pyramid in Scotland, but it's a monument to Queen Victoria or something. Well, do you know, I don't know that. I don't know that one, Sid. I'll have to look into that. Oh, thanks for dropping that link for everybody, Green Eyes. She would, Denny, she wouldn't. Oh, what's Denny said that I've missed? You'd be splitting half, forgive my terminology. Yes, absolutely. Paul. Oh, hi, Paul. Welcome to the chat. We've just been talking about the Vikings in America, and we've gone from that all the way through to now talk about Tasmanian tigers and governments that are napalming trees. So, oh, and Sheila would like to have had relations with Giant, allegedly. So, welcome to the chat. Ancient drop bears of Australia are to be feared. Yeah, somebody got me with that flipping tail, Denny, when I was in Australia. Frida, very interested about the Nephilim. I think they were wiped out by the flood in Noah's time. There's rumours that the so-called Greek gods, etc., came from them. Yeah. I'll have a look at that, Green. Yes, Sid, I'm going to have a check out of it as well. Oh, you've seen it happening in Tasmania, have you, Green Eyes? Yeah, it just sounds horrific, and all these environmental groups are trying to stop it happening, but, you know, money talks, doesn't it? Yeah, people saying, hey, Bull. Green Eyes, it's really interesting group. Google it, it's true. To me, I forget you've been there, Kesaha. They got you with the droppers. They did. I shit myself because I'd got a bit of I was going to earn a little bit of money cashing and doing fruit picking, and somebody told me I had to watch out. Not only did I have to watch out for fruit spiders dropping on me, but there were these drop bears. Yeah, bloody maniacs. And me, Miss Gullible. Massive areas of deforestation. Yeah, Green Eyes, it upset me, that did. And especially considering that there is a very, very high possibility that some of these creatures are still there. And even if they're not, there were some of the endangered species they'd put trail cams up, you know, so that they could see what kind of creatures were going round at night. And I can't remember what this creature was. It looked a bit like a swamp rat. However, it was only a tiny little creature. It sat up on its hind legs, and this naturalist, he said what it was, and he said that's full on protected, that animal. Frida, that's the way this chat rocks, going off in tangents, and I love it. I do as well, Frida. I just feel sorry for people that come in expecting to be listening about the Vikings taking off and going finding America and setting up settlements, and they come in and we're actually talking about drop bears. Jenny also must apologise profoundly for your channel getting a strike. 'Twas my music. I'm so sorry. Oh, give over. I don't care. I've just put it on private. They've also they've tried to give me a flipping strike for when my song that I put up that Mr. Sexy was singing. Get lost. Jog on. I also got hidden as well, though. It's been hidden because of the inordinate amount of see you next Tuesdays that were coming out of Uncle P's mouth. So don't worry about it. Oh, did you have a listen? Hang on a second. I keep forgetting to do this. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm going to pop this in the chat in case anybody wants it, but you don't have to. Did you have a listen, Denny, to the raucous behaviour from the night before's chat? I can't actually believe Nephilim cock came up before Viking cock. Actually, it isn't always you though, Denny, is it? Because the other night it was Green Eyes and Pork Chop. Actually, I don't know, Lady Witch and Raven were giving it a good run for the money as well, weren't they? And Sid and Cassius. Oh gosh, yeah, Welsh hundreds. Oh, I think you missed that as well, didn't you, Denny? Have you got an Amazon Alexa? Oh, no, yeah, PVA glue. For anybody, I'm going to do it again now. Let's just lower the tone. Who cares? For anybody who has an Amazon Alexa, please now turn to the Alexa and say, Alexa, translate 100 in Welsh. Please do that for Auntie Kiss. And then if those of you haven't, I'll do it for you. Yeah, liver. Oh, God, yeah. Oh, shall I do it for you then, Denny? Would you like me to ask my Alexa a question? Right. And you're listening to this one. You ready for it? That's why Sid just made a comment about it. Alexa, translate 100 in Welsh. Ready?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, Cant is Welsh for 100.
Oh, it's done it again.
Did that answer your
Hang
question?
on. No, it didn't, you useless feck. Right.
Thanks for your feedback.
I call her a useless feck and she says, thanks for your feedback. I'll try again. Alexa, what is 100 in Welsh?
100 in Welsh is cant.
There you go, guys. I did it. You have to let me know if you could hear that, and I'll just read through the chat again. Green Eyes, Pokey had a command on the English language that night. He definitely did. Oh, did you hear that? Thanks for your feedback. I didn't know she would say that. You useless feck. Oh, gosh. Oh, it's like Uncle P's back, isn't it just? But at least I think what we should say, if we've got up on panel again and anybody's wanting to stop it, Cooper, anyone's wanting to use that word, you can just say, oh, shut up, you 100 in Welsh. Okay, we all now know that's our code word. Alexa is posh. I want an Alexa, you know, that say something like, oh, you're all right there, girl. Go on, what you want? Or a Geordie one, why, aye? You know, say, Alexa, why, aye? Uncle P is awesome. Please send out love. Hope we see her again. Yes, I shall do. Yeah, a Geordie one would be brilliant. Do you know who I think? I know not everybody likes him, but I think it would be really funny with one that's got Robson Green accent. Sid Vicious, you are a right Welsh 100. Absolutely. Absolutely. You'll have to use that the next time somebody goes watching AD. Oh, Alan, Has anybody told you you're a Welsh 100? Yeah, like sat-nav simples. I think that would be really funny. Oh my gosh, I've just got to say this, right? Oh, sorry, hang on. King Canute, a real Viking king. King Canute was, although he was king of England, he was also king of Norway and Denmark. And he was born over there. So he was actually a full-on foreign king, a bit like our royal family. When we ended up with Germans because we had no English ones. And it's the same as my lot in Scotland. We ended up with an English king because we didn't have a Scottish one back in the 1300s. Let me just see, have I missed anything else? I think we're all here. I did hear, you know, everybody heard the story about King Canute. You know, at school, you got told that King Canute sat on his throne and tried to turn back the tide. You know, so I kind of grew up thinking this was a conceited, silly man. And then I watched something with his name is it Dr. Julian Richards? Is it? He's a historian. He you know he did the Blood of the Vikings series, which was amazing. He's an archaeologist, and he was talking about King Canute, and he said actually it wasn't so much of him being an arrogant king who sat there expecting the tide to turn back just because he commanded it. He said that the actual modern theory now about that is that he was just because he was a convert to Christianity, and he was trying to show that actually a king is nothing before the power of the Almighty. You know, he could sit there on his throne with his crown on and talk for all he was worth about the tide turning back because he wanted it to, but it was nothing. So it was really more about humility and humbling himself before God rather than him being an arrogant king who thought the tide would turn back because he ordered it to. So that's just a little snippet that I picked up from that program, which I found quite nice. And obviously, when we do the English bit for the Vikings, I can cover all of this because I mean there's so much in that, isn't there? So what? Gosh, that flipping door. What would you guys like for the next of the Viking installments? I'm obviously not going to do it for a couple of days. It is a nice thought, isn't it, Sid? You know, because we all thought, well, I'm presuming we all thought, and I can remember my history saying he was a history teacher when I was at primary school, and he was so arrogant. He thought that standing there and ordering the sea to turn around and go back, the sea would do it. And it doesn't seem like that was right at all. So I don't know what you fancy, which part you fancy covering next. Do you want to cover another country, or do you want me to go onto one of the mix it up a little bit and maybe cover either Ragnar or Rollo? Because we've got a chapter each on both of those guys. And even though I've not got chapters in the book about other famous Viking warriors, I do have information on them. So, you know, I've got other books as well. It was just this one book. I thought everything, it's quite concise. You know, everything's in one place rather than me getting virtually the entire contents of my bookshelf out and going through everything. But yeah, that's why I picked this book. But I'm happy. What would you guys like me to do for the next one of these? Or, because like I said, I'm happy to do anything and everything. Or do you want to do maybe one of these a week and then just do other things in the meantime? You know, like we can do a bit of paranormal. We could just do a bit of general chit chat. We could do anything. You know, if you stick us your thoughts down in the chat and let me know, because I just like to do what everybody wants. You know, go with the majority vote, consensus of opinion. Don't be shy. Otherwise, you know, I'm just going to do what I want to do, and you lot are going to have to lump it, and you might not like it. So interesting about the Norwegian Vikings turning on the Danish Vikings or vice versa. Well, yeah, because I mean, the Vikings fought with everybody. They fought with each other. Like I said before, they would have had a fight in an empty home if they didn't have anybody else to fight with. Enjoy it whichever way. Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, and don't forget with Norway was constantly being, although in my opinion, and I'm always going to say it, the Norwegian Vikings were the best. Not that I'm biased, obviously, much, but oh, sorry, we have some bugger in chat. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Well. Hello, gorgeous.
Well, bloody hell. Well,
hi. I'm in the bath, by the way. The camera will not click on. Don't worry, I wouldn't frighten anyone like that.
Yeah, you sound quite echoey. I'm just going to go through the chat a second here. I was just answering something for Sid. Very quick.
Is it echoey?
Only a little, not much.
Right.
It's not really bad. Yes, so Sid, with them turning on each other, even though I think the Norwegian Vikings were the best out the lot and the toughest and the most evilest, Norway was taken over and was ruled by Denmark at one point and was also ruled by Sweden at one point. So they were always fighting with each other. And obviously the boundaries changed as well, don't forget, because modern Norway, Sweden and Denmark aren't as they were back then, because parts of Norway now are what were parts of Sweden, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 years ago. So it was very clannish and very warlike. So sorry, 13 in chat, please. Oh, thank you, Frida. Simples is happy to listen to anything you're putting out. Your work is it's hard to prepare for stuff. Oh, thank you. Sheila, is there anything in the book about Viking women, the Shield Maidens? No, there isn't, Sheila, but I'm happy to cover that as well. I can do one on that. Simples is covering her eyes, she doesn't see you naked, Jenny.
I agree with what everybody. Oh no, it's so good to see you guys and to have chatted with you previously. Hello, Simples and Shaf. And I encourage everyone to jump up at some point and just say hello, even for like 2 minutes. It's really liberating and really not as bad as what you think, you know, once you've done it.
No, you're absolutely right. Oh, sorry, Sid was talking about England. Yeah, they still fought. Sorry about that. It's just because I was watching the chat. No, it's the same, Sid. Exactly the same. The Danes fought with the Swedes. Well, there weren't that many Swedes. It was mainly the Danes and the Norwegians. But yeah, they'd fight and then they'd make truces. But they didn't class themselves as all Scandinavian. It's only when they kind of joined forces together to create the Great Army. And even then there was infighting. And they'd even fight amongst, you know, the Danes would fight with Danes. any warlord who wanted to fight, he'd have it. So yeah. I think the ones in Ireland came over for a dust up in Northumberland. They did. It was all about taking over, making you wealth. So I hope that's
a dust up, a freaking dust up.
So
I've got. Hey, I learned something today, right? So it was only a little snapshot off of Facebook, but it said that okay, so a girl was at uni and her professor had shown a bone and it had like incisions in it, and it kind of represented the first calendar or that someone took note of the days, right? And apparently there's like 28 incisions. So everyone automatically assumed it must have been a man that did it. But then the professor said, well, why on earth would a man need to know what goes on every 28 days? It's obviously a woman that did it. Which kind of like, that's all it said, just give more credence to the fact that women did a lot more in history than what we realise, really. So this bone actually belonged to a woman and had been inscribed, obviously, for a period. Mad, huh?
Well, did you, were you in when I was talking to Bedtime Clown came up on panel? You might have been up as well that night, and we were talking about the books that I said, like Jean M. Auel, and they were about the clan of the cave bear, and they were talking about discoveries, you know, a woman who had been taken in by a Neanderthal tribe. And it is, but it was based on discoveries for modern humans that this woman got written into. So it was about, you know, the first time a horse was ever ridden, and the author kind of used her as the example. She by accident did this, or she by accident discovered that flint hit against fool's gold would create a spark that could cause fire, and how to discover soap. And it was all things like that. And one of them, which you've just said then, was that she started counting the days to know exactly when she would need to carry, because she hunted. And obviously you don't want, sorry guys, but you know, it's a fact of life, because of the amount of predators that were around. The smell of blood would automatically draw large canines in her direction. So she wanted to know when she would have a period, so that she would not be out in the wild and likely to attract predators towards her. Yeah. So how she wrote in. So that must have been that same discovery, because this woman goes.
It was only a brief thing on Facebook. I took a picture of it. I thought I'll remember that when I talk to you next.
Yeah.
No, that's names, but yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah, I thought, wow, fucking hell.
So are you going to be getting lied to go out and buy some PVA glue tomorrow?
Oh, don't. Oh my gosh, because I almost wrote in your comments, I'm literally about to burn all of my son's arts and crafts. Because it's all PVA. I have like 3 bottles of PVA glue. I've never seen something so perfectly in my mind's eye than when pork. I can't even bring myself to repeat it. It was hilarious with the beef curtains.
Oh God!
I mean, I could have that is just funny. And when I've brought that up before, other people say they call it a beef skirt.
Oh, now the only time I've heard beef skirt is just the piece of beef, you know, the skirt of beef.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what that may be. It's awful, isn't it? But yeah, it was hilarious. I don't want to, but I listened to it all and laughed out loud. It was fucking funny, and I will never look at PVA. Oh, I can't even think about it now. I'm going to throw up in my bath.
You got to throw out PVA glue and throw out your bread and toaster.
Yeah. I lied. But it was fucking funny. What?
Yeah. Oh God, it was just one of those things that just kept going and going and go. But it was my fault, because I've got a dirty sense of humour, and I couldn't stop laughing. And every time I could literally snap out and stop laughing and go, so anyway, Denny, and then the thought would come back in my head, and I got set off.
That's what it was, just the right vibe for it. That's why it's funny, and it's funny to listen to after. You know, it is funny the second time round. But that's what I said. That's why you've got to go live. Those spontaneous times where you just get those really infectious belly laughs. It's what it's all about.
It's great. Sid's just put something interesting in. Can you see the chat, or are you on your phone like me?
I've got the chat. Yeah. So I live 3 miles from Denton. I like that name. I know that's the name of a place, but it's a nice name for a boy.
Could be Dane Town. Sid's just put he lives. The area he's from is Gorton, Bloodtown.
Right.
Denton, Dane Town. And the river through it is Gore Brook, and flowed red with blood after a battle.
Sure.
And don't forget Manchester in what was the Danelaw, because it was part of Mercia, wasn't it? So, and then when I
honestly don't. This is all enlightening to me. I'm enjoying every minute of it. I've never heard it before, so it's all new to me, honestly. So I love it. It's really cool.
There was kind of a line drawn. Alfred the Great came to an agreement with the Vikings over here, with the Danes, but they used to call them all Danes, and they weren't. You know, they were Norwegians, they were Danes, and what have you. and to stop the raids and to try and come to some kind of a peace. He then agreed to give part of England to the Danes, to basically say, you stay that side of the line and we'll stay this side of the line. And they drew, and if you imagine a line going from kind of, the arse of England, kind of the sticky out bit over East Anglia.
Yeah.
Draw a line from there diagonally across the country and up to more or less Liverpool, just north of Chester, in the Liverpool, Wirral, Chester direction. So everything below that diagonal line was Wessex, was England, and above it was what was known as the Danelaw. And that's where, if you look now, even now, if you look at place names, the majority of place names in England that have got a Norse ending or a Norse connotation are grouped above that line. Even modern names now, Enderby, Sowerby, Earby, they're all Viking names. Denton, it's just absolutely fascinating.
It is. Well, look, Frida just said, actually, that's a very interesting question. What happened to the Vikings, or are we all living descendants of people?
They integrated. I mean, don't get me wrong. There is a bit. I do want to cover this at some point, so I don't want to give it all away. But one of the kings broke the truce, and going back in the 10th century, I think it was 10th or 11th. I'm not great with my dates when I'm off the bat because I've been talking about something else. But basically, he sent out all of his warriors around the country to slaughter any Danes, and they did it on a Saturday, which was the Bath Day. That was, Luxdaga, which was the day that the Vikings would bathe. And on that Saturday morning, they went out to any of the Viking settlements and slaughtered everyone, men, women, and children. They didn't want them living in that area. However, that wasn't in the whole of the UK. So, a lot of the Vikings did settle and they lived peaceably. And some of the areas were more Viking than others. So, if they had huge concentrations of Vikings, well, no king is going to risk all his troops by sending them in to try and kill a few Vikings who are having a bath of a Saturday morning, because the likelihood is they ain't going to come back. So no, and that Julian Richards I was on about, when he did the Blood of the Vikings series, they actually did go out and do DNA testing, and they only tested the men because they wanted to see, if they were trying to trace back down the male line. So they did DNA testing on men in select areas. So they checked places like Cumbria, Liverpool, Manchester. Places like Manchester and London weren't great because obviously the demographics in those big cities, they're constantly changing, aren't they? People are coming in for industry and so on and so forth. So they went to other larger areas, but more where there hadn't been so much of a population movement. So places in Cumbria, places in Ireland, the Wirral, believe it or not, that although it's quite close to Liverpool, people do tend to stay there. And the only people, Shetland and Orkney as well, and lots of places in Scotland. And the only people that they would test, I think, were men who could prove that they had, I think it was 2 or 3 generations had lived in that same town or village. So if you didn't have, your grandfather and your great-grandfather hadn't also been born and raised there, then they wouldn't test you, because they were trying to say that anybody who was living in there, their family was there 2 to 3 generations ago, the likelihood is that they probably hadn't moved from anywhere. They'd been there, since that line, that bloodline had originated. And they did manage to find that there's a quite a big and significant number of people in this country with Viking DNA. And they had to do the Norwegian DNA because Danish DNA, because there were obviously Danish Vikings, but because of where Denmark is situated, it's so close to Germany, and obviously you've got Anglo-Saxons who were German, And then 1066, which was the Normans, although it was French, French territory, Normandy was a Viking settlement because it was no man's land, the North man's land. That was Rollo, who was a Viking. So they kind of didn't test that section of DNA because they wouldn't have been able to tell who was an Anglo-Saxon, who was a Dane, who was Norman. They stuck with the kind of Northern Scandinavian DNA to test, and it's still a pretty high percentage throughout this country. Boring old me. Let me see what's in. When the Vikings went east, they became the Rus or the Rus. Could be ancestors of the Russians. I think that's where the Russian, the word Russia came from. And also, I think as well, I just noticed Tisby Denny's gone on mute for a second, so I'll just keep prattling along. She's probably washing her lady bits and doesn't want you all to hear her. Yeah, and I think as well, when I was speaking the other night about me having that 7% of Finnish Ural in my DNA, well, don't forget there's that border, isn't there? So you've got Norway, Finland, Lapland going into Russia. So could it have just been that it was, people were crossing the borders in either direction, or did one of my ancestors carry, brought home a wife or a concubine, even, you never know, but brought home a little Finnish or even maybe a Russian bride? Although I would think if that was the case, that it wouldn't be as high as 7%. So I think there's probably been some kind of crossing of borders. But yeah, you're right there, Sid. You're back in room, love.
Hey?
I'm saying you're back in the room, love.
Yeah, I ran the tap. That would have been really annoying. So I got some nice shampoo. You know that caffeine shampoo? Sorry to jump off the subject. You get that caffeine shampoo to make your hair a bit thicker and...
Oh, no, my hair's really thick. No, you don't want it any thicker.
Oh, well, lucky you. Well, my hair's very long. I think I'll get a bit paranoid. So it's called Planter 21. But it's like caffeine shampoo, but it's in. I have to leave it in for 10 minutes. Honestly, my hair's getting so fucking wild. I had to tame it with probably about 6 squirts of serum earlier. The softening serum, hair stuff.
Oh, you see, my friend. Oh, sorry. No, sorry, you carry on.
No, that was it. It's just, it is. I think it is doing what it's saying. Honestly, earlier I was almost in tears. I was, fuck, it's so thick.
Yeah, well, one of my friends has. Oh, sorry, just simple. Yeah, I'll do it with you as well. I'll make everybody a mod when they come in.
Hi,
I'm trying to have the most mods on YouTube. So everybody's mods. So, but I can't do it on my phone at the moment. I have to wait till I come offline. Yes, one of my friends has very thin hair, and she has an illness. She's got MS as well, and it's been quite good on her. But her hair was very fine. She's got curly hair. It's most amazing. You'd pay a fortune to have a perm like that. It's amazing, but it's fine. And she's like, God, my hair. Anyway, when she was diagnosed with MS, she changed her diet, and she started to eat. There is a point to this. She started to eat. She did a search online, which foods and things should she eat to try and help with this illness. One of the things was watercress. So she started eating shitloads of watercress.
Yeah. I love that with egg mayo. Gosh, it's lush.
Yeah, her hair started to change. Its texture. And when a hairdresser, my hairdresser wouldn't have noticed, but she's got the money. She goes to Tony and Guy, and she's gone there for years, goes into Manchester. And her hairdresser said, oh my goodness, what have you been doing to your hair? It's feeling thicker, and it's feeling in condition. And when she went through what she was eating, he said straight away, it's the watercress. So if you like watercress...
I love it with the egg mayo. I'm about to go out tomorrow and buy me some freaking watercress.
Yeah, well, she'd been trying all sorts of hair treatments, and she said, doesn't it turn out that the one thing that helped my hair was the bloody watercress?
Did she like it particularly, or was it like, oh, okay?
No, Yeah, no, she does like it. I'll have to find
Yeah.
out what the other stuff. It was just the watercress thing I remembered her saying. So, but yeah, maybe Google it. But I'll try and find out what the other things were. But yeah, her hair looks amazing now. It's never ever
Oh,
going to be,
lovely.
you know, thick hair, but it's definitely not as thin as it was, and it's not as
Yeah.
flyaway as it was, as thin hair does get. Because my sister's is like that. Oh, green eyes! I must give that a go.
I know, I love egg and cress. Frick, I really could eat that right now, but I've literally got no cress, so I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow.
I'll just have a quick skin.
Cooper!
A right arsehole tonight. He dragged me out. He normally, when we go out for a walk, he walks at the side of me. He's a well-trained dog, which nobody would think about when they're in. He's trained on the gun. We've done obedience with him. He's done tracking. And tonight he took me out and everyone was laughing at me. He was dragging me around the village. He's got a right bug up his ass for some reason. He's being
He's like, you show me up, I'm going to show you up.
Yeah, it's just been really naughty tonight. I even looked at the sky because guaranteed, usually when he behaves, it's a full moon, but it's not. It's a new moon, isn't it? So, but tonight is acting like he would be on a full moon, and I don't know why. But he's been very.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll just sorry, Frida's asked. So assuming they just integrated, took up other religions, you don't hear anyone talking about going to Valhalla anymore. Well, no, because obviously then as well, if they were trying to integrate and if you became Christian, you know, once you were a Christian, then you didn't dare talk because you would suffer some pretty horrific penalties for it, you know, including death.
Yeah, so same as any religion anywhere, isn't it? You don't believe, you get the food. But Frida, I'm the same as you, mate. I think it was yesterday that Kissed My Ex, and the guys in the chat, I said, "What the frick is Valhalla? Is it heaven?" But they fully explained it's like loads more than heaven. It's much more like defined than, you know, some.
Well, that's the war chant, isn't it? Glory or Valhalla, one or the other. You know, if you don't win, then you're going to Valhalla. You're going to make sure you do. But that's why they were so savage, because the bravest of the fighters were the ones that would be chosen.
Do you know that kind of reminds me of the New Zealand hacker. That's a similar thing. That's a war chant, isn't it? Saying like, "Oh, is it someone has to win today?" You know, it's going to be us or something like that, or.
And they call down on their ancestors, don't they? They're calling down all the strength and the power of their ancestors to give them courage in the battles, and it's similar. It's similar to the Viking war cries. Probably not, they don't think about it in the same way as the Maori with the haka, but it's the same thing. You know, all they wanted was Odin, Thor, whichever of the gods they wanted to kind of make an offering to, and they never begged them. They didn't say, you know, like, please, Odin, help me win this battle. It was just, you know, Odin, give me your strength so I'll kick some ass, and if I don't, I'll see you tonight at the feasting halls. So that what it was what it was all about, because the very bravest and the very strongest of the warriors knew that they would be taken by the Valkyrie and just live in glory forever in the afterlife. Feasting, drinking, and doing the old jiggy. And that was their life after death. Sounds good to me.
Do you want to hear? I'm going to have to jump off. I only meant to just jump up and say hi briefly. Can I tell one really random, funny story before I go? Okay, now this is not it. You'll hopefully get it. It was an innocent mistake on my part. Okay. But a few years back in Somerset, I worked for, I'm not going to name names, obviously. He was very rich, a very, very, very rich older man. He was actually a politician at a time, but I cleaned his house for him, okay? He had like a young Japanese lover, young man, like obviously no issue. He was very nice, spoke very good English. Anyway, I worked there quite a few months and it was all fine. I knew my routine, but one day, I went into the young Japanese chap's room and I knew him, of course, said morning, and he went, "Hello," like that to me. And I thought he was having a laugh. So I went, "Hello." back,
Oh.
but he just had his teeth whitening strip in, man. I was like, fuck, oh fuck. Yeah, literally had his teeth whitening strip in, mate. I fucking just ran into his bathroom and like took like 7 years to clean it. I just thought, oh my god, Denise, really?
Did you laugh?
Oh,
Did you laugh after it?
sorry.
Did he laugh though? Did he find it funny, or did he not
Mate,
realise?
no, he just because he went hello and I went hello, and then I obviously noticed he deliberately had his mouth open because the strip was in, and I flicked to the bathroom. I was gone. Yeah, flicked and just. I think I cleaned probably 10 times harder than I ever had that day.
You are wrong. You really are.
And I'm not, you know what I mean? I don't mean to reinforce freaking stereotypes at all, because he did speak incredibly good English, probably better than me, but yeah, what a dick I am, eh?
What a funny
Yeah.
one. You are a funny one. So,
I know. Well, look, my darling, I'm going to jump off. I've got to finish this bath, and it was great to chat briefly, and I'm loving how it's going regarding the Viking chats.
Thank you. And then I'll speak to you again before. Oh, actually,
yeah, of course.
Before
so you're away? Are you away for a couple of days, mate? Did you say you're busy with work and other commitments?
Yeah, tomorrow I am. But before you go,
Yeah.
hang on, I'm going to try and do this private
Go on.
chat. Hang on.
Okay. Are you going to send me a picture of your bottom? Because I really would like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bear with me a second, guys, because I'm just going to send some Rudy nudies to Denny in private chat.
Yeah, lucky me. You lot in the chat, you're the losers. This is what I get for coming up on chat.
Right, in a second. Right.
I'm joking, guys. Obviously, she's not. Oh, lovely. Oh, sweet. Okay, hold on. Let me.
And then we can sort out
wet hands. Yeah, I will as soon as I get out this bath. Oh,
no
fuck.
problem.
Are you still there? Are you still
there?
there?
I'm still here.
Shit, hold on. I'm sorry, guys, because I've got wet hands.
It's okay. Right. Sorry, guys, we're not being cryptic. I just noticed Simples because she'd put Rennie's Enfield just as I typed that to you in private chat. So we can,
give me 2 seconds. Don't let me log off yet. I'm going to just give me two seconds.
No problem. Sorry about that, guys. We're not being cryptic. Well, we are, but we're not really. Yeah, because obviously I want to sort this out with Denny. And like we said the other night, maybe look at doing, I don't know, maybe Monday or Tuesday next week, the 10th or is it the 10th or the 11th? I think. God, I'm losing track of the days again. Day is it today? Denny, don't drop your phone in the bath. Oh, I know, Frida. Do you know what I did? This was really weird, right? I was sitting on the toilet, as you do, and I was texting Mr. Sexy. I don't even think I've told him this. So I'm sitting there. So I'd had a wee. I was ready for getting off, but I'm like really involved in the whole texting thing. And I dropped my phone. And you know when you go to catch it, but you bounce it off, and it was a bit like I was playing volleyball. And would you believe it? It went straight between my legs and landed down the pan. Well, I've never jumped off the loose equip. My hand went down. I'd only done a wee, so don't worry. It was nothing horrendous. I was down the toilet, hoiked the phone up, ran it under the tap, and then I was like, "Shit! It's not a waterproof phone.
It's not waterproof. The fuck."
Yeah, I got my hair dryer on it. I was like, "Oh fucking hell! I don't believe this." Pardon me, French. And then would you believe it? It still worked. Yeah, I couldn't.
What make is that?
A Huawei.
They deserve an endorsement.
Yeah, Huawei P Smart. Second
Huawei.
one. Yeah. Second one I've had, and I actually do like the phone because I hate, and I know I'm not going to be with the the majority here. My work phone is an iPhone. I effing hate it. So
I've got an iPad. I kind of love the iPad, but then on the iPhone, you always get that forever message. You haven't got enough storage.
Yep. Yeah.
Don't you? You're like, I've deleted my life. What more do you want, blood? You meant to intravenous yourself up to the iPhone to save it?
Well, I'll tell you why I like this that much. My tablet is a Huawei one as well. So, oh, since you said if you ever do it again, put it in a bag with some rice. Yeah, I heard about that, but
Yeah,
afterwards.
yeah. Well, funny, it worked the way you did it, didn't it? And yet I've heard rice is sort of almost like an urban myth. Doesn't really
Yeah,
work at all.
but it was.
But
Well,
guys, look, I must rinse this out. It's been so lovely to chat. Lots of love to everybody, and we'll catch up soon. I'll grab that kiss, so I'll catch up with you in a bit. All right, mate?
yeah. Have you got it? Have you got it now?
Got it. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
No worries. Cheers, dude.
All right, no worries. Take care, guys. Speak soon.
See you in a bit, lovely. Bye.
All right. Bye. Bye.
Right. So, and
Oh,
thank you.
it's not leaving. Sorry, I'm still here. Hold on.
Done it again. Love that girl. Yeah, as always, I love it when Debbie comes up. I love it when anybody comes up. So yeah, as I said, so I'm gonna be calling this one to halt shortly because, like you know, I'm back to work. Oh God, would you believe I've been off for 3 weeks? I had 257 emails, the content of which is still shite that I had to go through today. I've lost the will to live by lunchtime. I was just like, for God's sake, who was sending me emails over Christmas? These sad bastards. All work related, but you know, not anything that couldn't have waited until today when I came back. Oh, have I? Is that any better, guys? Anybody? I'm a sounding. Oh, is it all right now? I was just about to log out and come back in again, but if you can hear me, I think it was possibly I'd knocked my phone's on the charger now, and I think I must have knocked the charger. I think that's what happened the other night as well. I Granda's out. Can you hear me, mother? Little tinkers. So what I was saying was, because I don't know, I bet you didn't hear what I was saying at all. I was saying that I was going to start getting ready to wrap this one up now, only because it was my first day back at work today. I had 257 emails to go through because I've been off for 3 weeks. Pure shite, nothing that nobody could have waited until today to send me, because obviously I wasn't in, so it wasn't like I could attend to any of these non-urgent issues that were being brought to my attention. So, and I've got quite a bit that I need to get through in the morning with work. So, going to have an early-ish night tonight. I'm not around tomorrow night. Maybe Thursday, but I'm not sure yet. I'll have to keep you posted. And then Friday, yeah, Paul, good to see you too, Chuck. Nice for you to drop in again. And you will be blue next time. It's just become a standing joke in this chat that all blue. Friday, I have been told that I may possibly be getting the engineer coming back to check on my trying to sort this flipping boiler out in the central heating, which I hope he does. So then that will, depending as and when and what time and what he's doing, might, that might have some bearing on whether I can or cannot come online on Friday. So, but yeah, so I don't know how to do this. I don't know whether to stick with another Viking one and then Denny and I next week can cover Enfield. We're going to have a chat about it because she's got my contact details, so we can try and sort that out, but maybe look to the start of next week and do an Enfield bit and mix it up, if you're all happy with that. But prior to that, maybe if I do the next live and we can do a bit more on the Vikings, and if there's any particular thing on the Vikings that you want me to cover, you know, if not one of these chapters, anybody got a particular burning desire to know anything about a particular Viking, I don't know, period, feat, battle, lifestyle choice, then I'm happy to do that. Because I just, as I keep saying, and I keep repeating myself, I don't want to make it boring. I'd rather people are enjoying what we're doing and we've got something to talk about rather than just me. Bit more Vikings and see where it leads. Yeah, I'm good with that. Is there anything in particular, Sid? And anybody else? I mean, you know, I'm happy even if it's not about a oh, because that was something else I was going to tell you guys as well, Sid, and I got distracted. Perfect balance. Oh, thank you, Sid. I'm glad. Yeah, do that, have a chat, talk about other things and go back to it. When you were talking, it's just before I go off, when you were talking about Denton and Gorton, well, where I live, the moors aren't that far away. Shield Maidens, yeah, I'm happy to talk about the old Shield Maidens, Sharon. Another excellent live tonight. Oh, thank you, Green Eyes. Thanks, darling. Well, where I live, where the moors are, they're called by a different name now, but they were called, and they're on old maps from the like 15th and 16th and 17th centuries, and they're called Gunnulf's Moors, as all one word, and it's a huge long name. And they've actually said that this is actually meaning Gunnulf's Moors, and they would have belonged at some point to a possibly Danish Viking called Gunnulf, who had settled around here. Now, it doesn't mean he lived on there, but it does mean that it was a parcel of land that belonged to him. So the likelihood is that the village I'm living in would be, you know, would have been owned by a Viking. He could have even, you know, lived on this particular spot. I don't know. And as far as I'm aware, I don't think that there'd been any Viking finds here because it was quite industrial. There were mills built all around. Maybe there were, maybe there weren't. So I find that quite comforting that you know, I'm of that Viking stock. I was born in an area of Scotland that did have, you know, quite a significant Viking presence. I've come to England, and yet I've then ended up in a village that at some point was part of the property of a Viking called Gunnulf. So I thought I would throw that in. So what was I going to? I forgot what I was going to say then. So yeah. So I'm quite happy to do that. We'll. Oh, sorry. It's my most easterly point on the coastline. Yes, Simples. Very, very, very probably. In fact, I think they have. I'm sure that area there've been some significant Viking finds. And in fact, do you know? I've just had a thought. What do you think of this? Why don't we? Because we're looking at the Vikings, rather than get it the old boring way, why don't we, after I finish this live, if you guys wouldn't mind, because this would help me out and I could do a bit of research, and obviously don't dox yourselves, but if you could put, if you're interested, if you could put in the comments after this live has finished, which areas you either, like a general area of where you live or where you were born, and I'll have a look and see if I can find out some interesting Viking facts, or if there are any Viking facts for those areas, if there were any nearby settlements, if there were any nearby battles. I don't know what you think about that as a bit of an idea. And it's up to you guys, and you don't have to, but because I love looking into things like that, so I'm quite happy. And and then I could go through you all one by one, not in the biblical sense, obviously, but I could, have a look at trying to give us an idea of where we're from and what's likely to have been in that area, and if we could possibly have come from, a Viking settlement. So I don't know what you think, but yeah, that's an idea to take one of the lives in a different direction once we finish talking about the serious stuff. On Ilkley Morbat, oh gosh, Green Eyes, my granddad used to sing that. Where hast thou been since I saw thee on Ilkley Morbat? Where hast thou been since I saw thee? Where hast thou been since I saw thee? Sorry. Really shitty Lancashire accent, but I tried. I didn't finish it, did I? On Ilkley Morbat, on Ilkley Morbat, on Ilkley Morbat. I didn't like the bit about the worms, though. When you died and then the worms came and eaten you up, and then the birds ate the worms, and then the people ate the worms. The people ate the birds. And I just kept thinking about it. Put me off wanting to eat any like chicken or anything for ages. That bit about then birds will come and eat up worms, and then we will come and eat up birds. And then it was them we'll have all of that and thee on Ilkley Morbat. So yeah, it was just the thought of us eating dead people. Ugh, gave me nightmares as a child, that. All Yorkshire men wear hats, all Yorkshire... I'll get my coat. Oh, the dog is off again. The little shitbag. Stop it. So yeah, so I think I will try and do that. If I get any takers, I think I'll try and do that for a live. If anybody ends up putting any information, or in fact, you don't even have to put in details of a town or a village that you either live in or that you live near. Anywhere that you're interested in. If you think you know of somewhere that might have been Viking, simple make. I sleep with my flat hat on and me whippet under my arm. And don't forget, you ferret down your trousers, or trousers actually. I did trousers in my old language. But yeah, ferret down your trousers and a jam butty. Yeah, not that we stereotype or anything, but yeah. Flat cap, whip it under your arm, jam butty, and in the other hand, and a ferret down your trousers. Yeah, your ferret, which is quite apt because you're. Or would yours be a meerkat? You could have a Yorkshire meerkat down your trolleys. Right, guys. So, I and took Woodbine in gob. Bloody hell. Do you know, my dad is still to this day, it doesn't matter what kind of a cigarette it is, because he were in the army. In his regiment, they always called his the cigarettes, they called them bines, which was short for Woodbine, even though they weren't smoking Woodbines. If it were a roll-up, if it was a Regal, whatever it was, give us a bine, pass us a bine, and he still calls it that now. Woodbines. Do they still have them? I don't suppose you'd know, though, would you? Because you can't tell what anything is these days in the shops. The packets hide, everything looks the same, doesn't it? So, right. So, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I will call a halt to this one. You guys have a think about my suggestion. No, because they were unfiltered. All right. You guys have a think about my suggestion. Anybody who's interested, stick me, some info. As I said, please don't dox yourselves, but anywhere that you're interested in me doing a little bit of a research on about Viking involvement, and we can look at that on a future live. Won't be here tomorrow, but I may be here Thursday or Friday, but I'll give you loads of advance warning. And thank you all so much for coming in. I really enjoyed this chat, and thank you for listening to me droning on. I really appreciate it. Sheila, okay, I'm nodding off now, so perfect timing. Good night, kissing everyone. Yeah, good night and sleep tight. Everybody look after yourselves. And once again, I'll do my usual night-night, even if it's pissing you all off and irritating you. It's going to be my catchphrase now. So here we go. See you all on the bright side. Night, guys. You're welcome, Sid. Night, Chuck.